Hello and welcome back to my channel. Make sure you like and subscribe to my channel. Let's begin. Rayquaza was a powerful legendary, indeed he was. Escaping capture from Team Rocket was a tedious task even for the legendary himself. Huffing slightly from remembering the recent event, the nerve of the humans to try and capture him. He wasn't disturbing anyone. Heck, he learned his lesson after the events with Deoxys to investigate before beating the daylights out of someone accidentally passing his territory. Remembering what happened before all hell broke loose. Rayquaza was peacefully sleeping in his territory, the ozone layer. A vast and open space where neither Pokémon, with the exceptions of some legendaries, or human could survive, the perfect place for the green giant. When suddenly, his slumber was interrupted by a hit from a powerful ray. Looking around for the one responsible for the attack, he was surprised to see the appearance of two small ships. Narrowing his eyes at ships, he tried to retaliate by using Hyper Beam but was suddenly stopped when two powerful light beams hit him head-on. Wincing from the pain, he glared at the source of the ray. A large spaceship with the notable art feature can be seen was slowly approaching him from out of nowhere. The size of the ship covering his silhouette. He prepared to fire off another Hyper Beam, when suddenly he was struck by 6 rays of red lights emitting from the ship pointed at Rayquaza. Blinking in confusion at the red lights, Rayquaza dismissed the weird illumination and continued charging his Hyper Beam when suddenly, he screamed in pain as energy in his body was painfully being torn away from him. Barely keeping an eye open, he found the source of the powerful attack. The red lights emitted by the Team Rocket ship was siphoning out the energy he had. Slowly weakening him as yellow streaks of energy leaves his body and slowly following the red lights. Mustering all the strength left in his body, Rayquaza released a weak burst of Hyper Beam, albeit being weak, did the job and destroyed the source of the red lights. But not powerful enough to destroy the large ship. The pain was too for Rayquaza, and with almost all his energy gone, he succumbed to the peaceful call of the void and fainted. As the two smaller ships moved towards Rayquaza, positioning themselves each at the side of the legendary Pokémon. They fired 2 metallic nets at the beast, ensnaring it with the metallic contraption. The 2 pilots of the ship, satisfied with their work, slowly moved forward towards the larger Team Rocket ship as doors underneath the large ship opened, giving way for the 2 smaller ships to enter with Rayquaza in tow. Damage report, calmly said by a man wearing an all-black suit seating on a chair in a room flooded in darkness with his Persian lying on his lap, facing a multitude of screens revealing to be Giovanni, the leader of Team Rocket and the mastermind of the assault. Rayquaza has managed to destroy the Siphon Ray's prototype, sir, answered a panicked grunt. Will it be reparable? Questioned Giovanni, with no hint of worry in his voice. Negative, sir. The damage destroyed all 6 Siphon Rays, but we've managed to extract and capture Rayquaza and half of its energy, informed the grunt as he showed 6 glass cases containing a pure yellow sphere. Humming to himself, the leader of the Team Rocket replied, "Well done, land on the nearest base in the nearest region and order them to prepare for our arrival." The grunt saluted to Giovanni and said, "Yes, sir." Cutting off the communication with the leader of the group. Giovanni looked through another screen with a smirk on his face. "Rayquaza," he said as if he could hear him, "your service will be a huge benefit for Team Rocket. I hope we can keep this mutual relationship that we have," spoke Giovanni with a dark chuckling sinister tone. Rayquaza finally stirred after fainting due to Team Rocket. Lifting an eye up, he saw a multitude of humans in white coats surrounding him. Finding the energy and strength to get up, Rayquaza slowly levitated, only to fall down back and creating a loud noise on the cold metallic floor underneath him. He tried levitating again with much more success as he gazed around his surrounding. The scientist around the legendary beast quickly turned around once they heard the loud noise coming from the Pokémon. "It's awake," announced one of the scientists. "It really is the legendary Rayquaza," said another scientist. "We captured that?" asked the grunt inside the room with disbelief at what he's looking at. Recently being stationed in the base, he's already being granted the privilege of seeing a rare Pokémon, and not only that, the head of Team Rocket just visited the base. "Get Professor Alpha, and tell him it's awake," said one of the assistant scientists. To the grunt earning an annoyed response from it. No need to shout sheesh, replied the grunt as he slowly turned around to fetch said professor. Being his first time to be assigned to the base, he wasn't used to the weirdness of the people around the base yet. That won't be needed, as a man wearing the same generic lab coat as the other scientist with only the difference is the goggles he's wearing, weird since the room is dark. Heck, the whole Team Rocket base is dark. Red hair flowing from his back to down to his shoulder, with a smirk plastered on his face. As he slowly approaches the glass prison of Rayquaza. The grunt looked at him with a weird facial expression. Why the heck is he wearing goggles in the middle of the dark? Is everyone here a weirdo? Shaking his head and removing the thought of probably picking the wrong job, he went back to his position next to the door. Finally, the great Rayquaza, one of the three powerful weather trios, join us in the land of the living. HMPFH. Not so great after all, considering how easy it was to capture you, said the lead scientist in an evil chuckling voice. Proud of Team Rocket's achievement. Rayquaza glared at insult thrown to him by the scientist. And to think you're on the same level with Kyuger and Groudon, what a joke, laughed the red-headed scientist as the other scientists present in the room soon joined him at mocking the legendary beast as multiple tick mark appeared on the legend's head. This only fueled the burning anger rising within Rayquaza as he intensified his glare as if trying to melt the man in front of him. Snorting at the legendary beast, "Oh, stop glaring at me, you're so pathetic that it only took us minutes to capture you," said the scientist with a smirk on his face, furthering the laughter behind him. "Why did we even bother going for you? Even that Pikachu, those idiotic trio of recruit, looks more promising compared to you." Now the other scientists couldn't hold it any longer and dropped down lagging hysterically with tears on their eyes, remembering the trio of idiots as Meowth, Jesse and James. Rayquaza wasn't happy about this. No, he wasn't. Rayquaza was sad beyond belief with only three things running through his mind. 1. He was suddenly attacked out of nowhere by a group of idiots called Team Rocket, albeit successfully catching him. 2. His pride was being mocked by this human. This puny human. Doesn't he know how easy it was to crush his puny body? 3. Half of his energy was stolen from him. Trashing around to show his anger, the lead scientist merely laughed at the legendary Pokémon. Besides, continued the scientist, this glass was specifically made for you. Not that we'll need it, chuckled the man, so having a tantrum won't get you nowhere, said the lead scientist, a bit of irritation as the Pokémon continued with no intent of listening to him. He motioned for the other scientists, who after seconds of laughing finally stopped, to pull down a lever, and with a nod from them, shocked the legendary with electric volts coming from the top of the chamber. "Now be a good lizard and stop thrashing around," said the lead scientist. Annoyed with the beast. As Rayquaza glared at the man, he calmed down, realizing that wasting his energy by throwing a fit wasn't really the best thing to do. But still on guard due to his current situation. "Good," happily replied the red-haired scientist. "Now we'll be needing more of that sweet energy of yours, so if you don't mind," said the chuckling scientist as mini siphon rays appeared from the top. But Rayquaza wasn't having any of that, charging a burst of energy inside him. Unknown to his captors of his plan. He looked at the top of his cell and found a huge obvious weak spot that any dumb person could find. "I told you before, your attacks are useless in this chamber, it's specifically made for yo dash," he chuckled, but suddenly stopped when an explosion from inside the prison stopped him from speaking. Rayquaza burst through the roof of the cell with no intention of stopping as his body moved in a burst of speed through the roof of the glass prison, then through a wall, leaving a trail of debris, and knocked out a couple of scientists from the force, and other men were thrown to the ground, leaving the red-headed lead scientist coughing on the floor as dust and broken lab equipment surround the area. A look of shock and horror on the redhead's face as he looks at the action of Rayquaza and quickly scrambled. "Get him," he shouted. Fortunately, the grunt near the door was still active with a couple of bruises and scratches on his face. "What did you expect me to do against a legendary?" shouted the grunt, pointing at Rayquaza, unhappy with the current situation. "I don't care if you have Tio become chew toy for that overgrown lizard if that's what it takes. Stop him," said the redhead with anger. "Ugh, do I have a choice?" muttered the grunt. "Chameleon, go." As he released the ball, an orange lizard with fire spewing from its tail appeared. Char, spoke the Pokémon. Use flamethrower. The orange dino-like Pokémon nodded to its trainer and looked at the legendary with no fear in his eyes, opened its mouth to shoot streaks of flame towards Rayquaza. Weirdly enough, it actually did damage. Wincing from the pain, Rayquaza glared at Charmeleon and shot a quick hyper beam at it. "Oh sure dash," says the grunt in a voice filled with horror and fear as both him and Charmeleon quickly dodged the attack. "That was close," he said with relief as he wiped off sweats from his forehead. As he looked behind him, his eye widened. "We need to go," the grunt shouted as he pointed at the barrel of oil as the hyper beam hits it. As fire soon enveloped the base. "But what about Rayquaza? And the Siphon Ray research base?" screamed the scientist. As other people inside the room slowly woke up from the dilemma. "We need to get. No use getting Rayquaza when we're barbecued alive," he shouted, gritting his teeth. Alpha had no choice. "Evacuate the base," shouted the lead scientist as workers rapidly went out of the burning facility. The scientist turns around to Rayquaza and says, "You'll pay for what yo dash," only to be cut off by the now empty air that Rayquaza used to be in. "Come on already," says the frustrated grunt, reminding him of his situation. All right, said the scientist with a bit of frustration. "Giovanni won't be happy about this." Rayquaza quickly skyrocketed to get as quickly away from the Team Rocket to avoid being captured again. An experience he oh so happily would like not repeat. His body covered in bruise, scratches and burns. Powerful he might be, he wasn't a fool of taking any chances that Team Rocket won't go after him again. He sighed knowing hiding was futile. If Team Rocket could track him and infiltrate the safety of his ozone layer, what's to say they won't do it again? He needed a solution to this problem and fast. And as if Arceus himself heard his pleas, which in case not really hard to imagine considering he's a legendary too. His thoughts abruptly disturbed by a familiar presence, looking around to find the source of his distraction, he redirected his course to find the oh-so-familiar aura. Rayquaza didn't know what he was doing, but something inside told him to follow the source of the aura. After traveling for half an hour, he sees a landmass which is a bit familiar to him. Kalos, he thought, what's the familiar aura doing in a faraway place like this? He thought as he continued his flight. A raven-haired boy wearing a blue jacket and red hat, you know him, was on top of the Prism Tower with his trusty Pikachu and an abandoned Froakie by his side trying to calm a raging Garchomp. "Garchomp, you need to stay calm, we want to help you," Ash said, showing a bit of frustration and worry for the pseudo-legendary. "Chomp," it howled in pain while clutching its head, slowly backing off the ledge of the tower. "No!" Ash screams in horror as he watches Garchomp fall to his immediate death. "Froakie, use your frubbles to keep Garchomp in place," he shouted. The Toad Ninja Pokémon replied with a key, as he throws frubbles from his neck towards Garchomp's feet to keep him in place. Ash took the opportunity to leap towards Garchomp and successfully landing on his chest with Pikachu following his best friend's actions. "We just want to help you, Garchomp," said Ash in low but sad tone, trying to calm the Pokémon down. After a lot of struggles, Ash manages to grab hold of Garchomp. Pikachu uses Iron Tail on the power lace, quickly jumping in the air. Pikachu flips as his tail glows in white, he uses the momentum of the jump to hit the power lace, successfully destroying it and landing near the edge. The after effect of removing the power lace caused Garchomp to wince and stumble back, but successfully releasing him from his pain-endured suffering. Smiling at his best friend, "Alright Pikachu. You did great, buddy." "They did it," exclaimed a joyful Bonnie. "Nice work Ash," spoke Clement and Professor Sycamore. The yellow mouse Pokémon joyfully accepted the compliment from his best friend, Pika. When suddenly the ground where Pikachu suddenly collapsed, replacing the look of horror and fear for everyone, causing him to fall down the tower. "Pika!" shouted the mouse as it fell down. "Pikachu!" Ash shouts in concern as leaps down the tower to rescue his best friend. Fear replaced by worry for his best friend. "No. Ash," as Professor Sycamore, Bonnie and Clement yelled in shock and horror for their friend. As Ash reaches his best friend, he clutches him tightly towards his chest, accepting his fate, trying to at least save his best friend as they fell down to their impending doom. On an unknown building on top of a roof, a masked man with a weird-looking Blaziken next to him watched the scene unfold. About to motion his Blaziken to rescue the falling trainer and Pokémons, but was soon stopped by a green blur of light shooting towards the falling. "What the f?" muttered the masked man as he and his Blaziken watch as the falling duo was rescued by a mysterious blur of green light. Rayquaza continued soaring through the night sky, as he felt the presence of the person he was looking for getting stronger and stronger as he approached a familiar location. Getting closer, Rayquaza suddenly stopped and closed his eyes, blinded by the dazzling night lights emitted by none other than Kalos's major industrial city of Lumiose. Rayquaza blinked for a few seconds, his eyes finally adjusting to the blinding lights of Lumiose City. He flew closer from roof to avoid being seen by people and continued onwards Prism Tower. Flying around, he turned his head to see the wide variety of shops, cafes, and restaurants spread throughout the entire city buzzing with life from corner to corner. He sees people talking, walking around from shop to shop, men dressed in suits, some people dressed in colorful clothing. A bit uncomfortable since he wasn't used to being near towns and cities filled with people and Pokémons with the exception LaRue City, although he was busy trying to fight Deoxys to really care about his surroundings at that time. One thing made him stop. The sight of a Furfur happily chasing a little girl laughing as she played with her Pokémon. Intrigued by the interaction, Rayquaza stopped and lowered down to the ground and hid in a nearby tree to observe the scene. Giggling slightly as her Furfur playfully pounced her. "Ah, look what you did to my dress, Furfur," playfully glaring the poodle Pokémon. Looking at her dress, Furfur frowned and apologized to her friend, Fru. The girl shook her head, stood up and gave a big smile to her Pokémon. "It's okay Furfur, I was just teasing you, I'll just say to Mom I tripped on a rock when we were playing," the girl said winking at her poodle-like Pokémon. The dog barked in understanding as she tackled her trainer and liked her face to show her appreciation. "Haha, stop it, that tickles," giggling as she hugged the Furfur making her poodle smile, happy to make her friend smile. Seeing the scene struck something inside the legendary Pokémon's heart. Being a legendary, he had power greater than the average Pokémon. Respect came in with the package of being legendary and control over the ozone layer of Earth. But with all those power and titles, Rayquaza always felt something was missing, something he couldn't find or get. And after seeing the interaction between the Furfru and the girl, he realized that it was happiness. To share the experience of joy and sadness with someone. To be cared by someone who can show him a bit of love and affection. Someone he can share the same dreams and goals, to conquer heights greater than any legendaries. Someone he can trust. Someone who'll remember him no matter what. Someone, like a friend. He realized. Sure, he befriended the Deoxys he fought in LaRue City, but their friendship didn't last long. After 2 days he was separated with the Deoxys trios when they had to go back home. For how many years, he was alone in the ozone layer, with no one to talk to except the empty space. Thinking peace and quiet was better than mingling with other Pokémons and people. And avoid what happened back in LaRue City. Oh, how wrong he was. It only made and increased the loneliness in his heart. Being alone with no one only made him miss the Deoxys trios. Suddenly, fear enveloped his being, as it crawled up to his heart. The fear of being alone and forgotten. Eyes widening with the realization. He shook his head trying to get the idea away. He didn't want to be alone and forgotten. He wanted a friend. He wanted to be important to someone. He wanted to be loved. His mind was snapped to the present as he felt something bad was going to happen. He suddenly felt the presence of the aura he's been chasing and looked at the Prism Tower. There, he thought as he rocketed upwards the sky and flew to the direction of Prism Tower, hoping he wasn't too late. Rayquaza was in time to witness 4 figures standing on top of the Prism Tower. Closing his eyes to feel their presences, Rayquaza was shocked to find the same Pikachu he met during his fight against Deoxys, the same Pikachu whose trainer saved him from being buried in dog pile of robots along with. The two Pokémon was unfamiliar to him. He was more focused on the raven-haired young man standing next to the Pikachu, as a river of nostalgia swept over him. Only to be interrupted when the ground underneath Pikachu suddenly collapsed. His eyes widened to see the young man jumping in after his Pikachu, shocked that he would go that far for his Pokémon. Why did he risk his life for a Pokémon? Why didn't he just save himself and forgot about the Pikachu? Was he crazy or just plain stupid? Shaking his head. He didn't have enough time to ponder about them. Springing forward in a burst of incredible speed, he shot forward like a bullet as his whole body turned green from the incredible speed, with one goal in his mind. He had to save that boy. Ash thought this was it. His grand finale. His final moment before he dies. Flashback of previous experience during his past travels suddenly flooded his mind. This wasn't the only moment he almost died. Chuckling in his head, might not be the good time to laugh, he thought. Remembering the time with Haunter when his spirit almost left his body after that experience. Also remembered the time when he actually died during his confrontation with Mew and Mewtwo, trying to stop both attacks from Pokémon to save everyone as he sacrificed his life for everyone. He smiled at the thought, he might have died but at least he saved a lot of Pokémons, ironically to be revived by the same Pokémons he tried to save. Another flashback of the tree of beginning where he died, but later revived by Mew. Don't get me started on the Unova trip, he laughed. Thinking about it, he's died several times and has been experiencing a lot of near-death situations in the past. Still confused how the heck he survived all of that. This time was no exception to the list. Hey, he might get lucky and this thing could be one of those lucky moments, right? He was shaken out of his thought when he felt the strong force of the wind against him. Thinking he was about to hit the ground. He closed his eyes, waiting for the painful crash. After several minutes of waiting, it didn't come. Weird, there should be a loud thump right about now. He opened his eyes to see what's going on. Looking down, he wasn't falling anymore. In fact, he was moving along the earth as if he was flying. Pikapi, getting the attention of the Pokémon buried in his chest. You okay, buddy? As he slowly lifted his arm to reveal a safe Pikachu. Pikachu, happy, replied his best friend. Pika Pie, asked the mouse to his best friend. I don't know, Pikachu. 1 second we're falling from the sky, then suddenly this happened, Ash exclaimed as he gestured using his arms to their current situation. Looking around, Pikachu suddenly froze and called out to his trainer, Pi Pikachu, as he pointed up. What is it, Bud? He didn't finish his sentence. Once he followed Pikachu's gaze, he can only gawk at their savior. Looking up, he saw the familiar face of the legendary Rayquaza. Staring in disbelief, Pikachu and Ash could only say one thing, Rayquaza. Pika. Looking down, Rayquaza inwardly sighed in relief to see both Pokémon and trainer in one piece. Seeing a nearby rooftop, Rayquaza slowed down and hovered near the ground, allowing both Ash and Pikachu to safely jump down. Cha, as Pikachu stretches while Ash rubbed under his chin, adoring the scratch from his best friend. He jumped back to his favorite spot on Ash's shoulder. Checking for any more injuries on Pikachu, Ash was satisfied to see his best friend wasn't hurt. As he focused his attention to the legendary. What are you doing here? Ash began with concern. If a legendary like Rayquaza was here, something bad must have happened. As he stared at the beast waiting for a response. Rayquaza only looked at him deep in thought. Pikachu suddenly spoke, Pika Pika Pikachu, in a hurried voice as he pointed at the bruise, scratches and burns present in the Pokémon's body. Ash gaped at his Rayquaza's condition and hurriedly went over to him. Forget that, Ash continued, what happened to you? Ash said in an anxious voice. Look at all these burn and bruise marks. We need to get you to Pokémon Center, fast. Face full of concern over the legendary. Rayquaza could only stare at him in wonder. Not only minutes ago, was this boy falling to his death trying to save his Pokemon, a second ago he could have died if he made a mistake of being too slow or failing to catch him, and yet he brushed off his death to worry about a Pokemon that all of a sudden, came out of nowhere. He was worried about him, he was worried about his safety. This boy cared more about him than his own well-being. Rayquaza shut his eyes as he drifted in deep thought, with a smile on his face. Ash was worried. Really worried, Rayquaza wasn't responding to anything he says. With Rayquaza injuries he thought, I need to get him to a Pokemon, fast, gritting his teeth due to the tense situation. Checking his bag. Oh, wait. It's back at Professor Sycamore's lab. The only thing with him was a couple of Pokeball and his Pokédex. Clenching his fist in frustration, he looked at Rayquaza. His face turned from worry to a questioning look when he saw Rayquaza smiling. Pikachu looked at both his trainer and Rayquaza's sadness adoring his face. Knowing how deeply his best friend cared about Pokemons especially when they're injured. Rayquaza has decided, feeling it was the right decision. Rayquaza opened his eyes slowly while looking at the trainer. Then slowly lowered his large serpent-like head down towards Ash's small hand. Getting an idea of what Rayquaza wanted to do, Ash gently laid his hand on top of Rayquaza's head, trying not to hit the bruise and burns present on the head of the Pokemon. As soon as his hand made contact with Rayquaza, Ash experienced a jolt run through his body as he suddenly felt fuzzy feeling enter his body. The same thing happening to Rayquaza as soon as he felt Ash's hand on top of his head. He felt a warm feeling of safety and acceptance wash over him. Rayquaza hummed as his voice vibrated creating a cute sound. Even with his injuries, Ash chuckled at the sound finding it cute. Feeling Rayquaza is okay, he stroked Rayquaza's head to show that he can trust him. Pikachu smiled as he saw the scene play out in front of him. Seeing that once again, his best friend managed to befriend a Pokemon. Pikachu liked that about his trainer, his willingness to go far for his friends and Pokemons. He admires that about him and is proud that his trainer is one of a kind. Rayquaza then took a step back from Ash, he looked at the trainer and huffed to get his attention. Seeing Ash's eyes on him, he then pointed his head towards Pikachu to which he got a Pika from the mouse Pokemon. Rayquaza nodded to the yellow mouse as he looks back at the trainer. Ash didn't know what they were talking about, but judging from Rayquaza's nod after Pikachu spoke. Pikachu understood the situation. He gave a quizzical look at Pikachu to help him understand the current predicament. Pikachu. What did he say? The mouse replied with a Pika Pikachu Pika as he pointed at Ash's pocket. Shuffling inside, Ash grabbed a Pokeball and had a confused look. He turned to Pikachu. Does he want a Pokeball Pikachu? He asked the yellow mouse. Pikachu face-palmed himself as he looked at Ash with a frustrated look. Pika Pika, said the Pokemon as he pointed at Rayquaza then the Pokeball. Following his buddy, Ash only just realized what he's trying to say. Oh. Oh, wow, said Ash in disbelief. He looked at Rayquaza for confirmation to which he got a nod from. Rolling his eyes at how his trainer can be a blockhead sometimes, he'd let this pass for now. But really? Do you really want me to capture you? I mean you are a legendary, it just doesn't feel right for you. Ash said in different states of emotions ranging surprise, worry then doubt. Rayquaza smiled at Ash for thinking about his feelings, he nodded and tapped the Pokeball using his head. Ash took a step back as the ball blinked red and swayed from side to side. Finally, a ding could be heard confirming a successful capture. I caught a Rayquaza. Pika, as Ash held the ball outwards with a smile on face, while Pikachu cheered lifting his right hand while on top of Ash's shoulder. The ball suddenly opened and out came a smiling Rayquaza. Ash was surprised. You don't want to stay in your Pokeball? Rayquaza nodded. But, you're the size of a Charizard, you'll stand out too much. I don't want Team Rocket coming after you, said Ash, worried about his new friend and how Team Rocket has a tendency to capture his Pikachu and Pokemon on a daily basis. Rayquaza blinked when Ash said Charizard. He knew what a Charizard, but his size being described as the size of Charizard. Me the size of a Charizard. Since when? He paused for a bit when he noticed that Ash was quite bigger compared the last time he saw him. He narrowed his eyes, as he dropped the subject, worrying about it later. He scoffed when he heard the Team Rocket's name, still angered from past event. Nodding at Ash's worries, he closed his eyes as his body shined in yellow and Rayquaza began to shrink. Shocked when Rayquaza suddenly shined bright yellow, Ash and Pikachu covered their eyes with their left hand, shielding their face from the blinding light. After a few seconds, the light stopped. Both Ash and Pikachu lowered their arms to see a smaller version of Rayquaza, almost the same size as Pikachu. Blinking, "Aw, you can do that," Ash said in an excited voice, earning a nod from the legendary. "That's awesome," Ash shouts as he punches his fist into the air, the dragon chuckling at the energetic trainer as it flew next to Ash's soldier. Slowly calming down over the fact that his new friend can transform in size, Ash suddenly remembered his task. "We need to do something about your bruises and burns," getting a nod from the two Pokémon. He remembered Professor Sycamore treating Froakie from a recent incident. "We can go to Professor Sycamore's lab. He took care of Froakie. I bet he can get you all patched up and ready to go," exclaimed Ash. "Pika," replied happily his best friend. Rayquaza made a roar of approval. Looking around, Ash remembered where they were. Sweat dropped at his current predicament. "We need to get down from this building first," he sighed as his best friend patted him on the back. "Pikachu," said Pikachu, trying to give a smile. "I know you're tired, but could you please give us a ride?" Rayquaza, earning a nod from the dragon as he transformed back to his Charizard size and gave a lift to Ash and Pikachu back to Sycamore's lab. Ash sighed while running a finger through the left side of his hair, careful not to disturb the sleeping Pikachu. He contemplated on how he's gonna explain to Professor Sycamore and the others about his new partner. Breathing in relaxing night air, he continued to walk towards the lab. He asked Rayquaza to drop them off halfway due to his injuries. Ash didn't want to stress the legendary beast anymore considering the legendary's condition when Ash met him. Looking at his two sleeping companions situated on both of his shoulders. On the left, was a sleeping Rayquaza, half of his bottom body slightly wrapped around Ash's neck like a scarf, ending at the other shoulder where Pikachu was. Occasionally fidgeting, probably due to the injuries he sustained. On his right shoulder, Pikachu was silently snoring while his head rested on top of Ash's wild hair, providing a soft cushion for the yellow Pokémon, content with his sleeping position. Slightly shaking his head to remove his worries, he walked at a faster pace. If he kept worrying about Rayquaza, the two Pokémon would sense his distress agitating them. He sighed, trying to hide the growing concern for the dragon Pokémon. But Ash needed to relax so the two of them could feel relaxed too. Remembering that a trainer's Pokémon could sense his partner's feeling, he took a deep breath. "Everything will be okay," he smiled at the thought, trying to be positive about his current situation. "And everything will back to normal by the end of the day, as if nothing happened." He continued his journey towards Professor Sycamore's lab, the night breeze providing a comforting feeling to Ash. Standing in front of the door of Professor Sycamore's lab, he took a deep breath and carefully opened the door. Ash was greeted with the sight of Bonnie, Clement and Froakie looking worried. "Probably because I disappeared after what happened in Prism Tower," he thought. Professor Sycamore was on his phone, speaking fast to the person on the other end of the line with Garchomp by his side. Looking at the newcomer, Professor Sycamore sighed in relief, causing the others to look as well. "Never mind, we found him," the professor said. "Thanks for all the help." With that he dropped the call. "Ash, you're alright," exclaimed the professor as he walked towards the trainer along with Garchomp, followed by Bonnie, Clement and Froakie. "We were so worried about you," said Bonnie in a loud and angry expression. While Clement shook his head at his little sister's actions. "It's good to see nothing awful happen to you," said the scientist with a bit of relief, "except for the part when you jumped off the Prism Tower," he added. "Yeah. That wasn't part of the plan," Ash laughed awkwardly. "I thought me and Pikachu were goners when we fell from the tower," he laughed as he scratched the head of his best friend, earning him a cha as the Pokémon slowly woke up from the noise, along with Rayquaza. "You're not supposed to laugh after chasing an out-of-control Pokémon and falling off a 1,000-foot tower, Ash," commented Bonnie as she leaned down looking up to Ash with an Annoyed look on her face, still not calming down after remembering what Ash did. Ash held up both hands as he leaned backward, awkwardly laughing at what the little girl said. Ash was speechless, was right too. As Pikachu hopped down from Ash's shoulder to listen to the conversation. Yes, agreed the professor, agreeing to the last part. I'm not saying seeing you two being alive is bad, but, continued the professor, what happened out there was quite peculiar, he stated. You were about to hit the ground when this green light suddenly swooped down towards both of you, then disappearing along with the two of you, said the professor in wonder. It's a miracle that you two are even alive, showing a bit of shock. Chuckling while sheepishly scratching the back of his head, that tends to happen a lot, he said while putting his signature hat back on. Well, it's good to know that you're alive and in one piece, said the professor with a smile. I can't thank you enough for what you did for Garchomp back there, as he gestured to Garchomp. Said Pokemon responded with, Gar, as he happily nuzzled Ash to show his gratitude, and also Pikachu and Froakie for saving him. What you did back there was quite impressive. But reckless, Clement nodded several times, thinking about how Ash leaped off the tower to grab Pikachu. It was for Garchomp and Pikachu, Ash replied in a confident tone. I'd do anything to save a Pokemon and my best friend, he shouted, pumping his fist out. Speaking of Pokemon. Did you think about what you'd do after grabbing Pikachu? Asked Bonnie with a raised eyebrow, less annoyed than before. Blinking at what the young girl said, Ash looked at her. Well, I really. He paused, looking for an answer. Never thought about that, he shrugged. Bonnie was right, he thought. Sighing about Ash's ignorance for his safety. Bonnie's annoyed look was replaced with a smile. At least you're okay, happy to see her new friend safe. Smiling back to the young girl. Ash suddenly remembered Rayquaza's condition and frowned while quickly looking at Professor Sycamore. Professor, can you check on Pikachu and treat my other Pokemon, stuttered Ash to the scientist, not knowing how he could explain Rayquaza's sudden appearance. Blinking at the young boy, you have another Pokemon? He asked. How did it get injured? I didn't see you use any Pokemon aside from Pikachu, he cautioned on. Well, you see, he nervously chuckled, after that green thing dropped us off. This guy, pointing at Rayquaza, who raised his head when Ash pointed at him, suddenly wanted to come with me, apparently after seeing what I did for Pikachu. He paused to see that the professor was listening. I was surprised when I saw his condition. I tried to tell him he needed to get to a Pokemon Center, earning him a happy look from the dragon. But he didn't want to. Looking at Rayquaza, persistent for me to capture him, Ash sighed, remembering what really happened. Pika Pie, his best friend, said, confirming his story. Long story short, he's now my first and new buddy in Kalos, scratching under the chin of Rayquaza, earning him a happy coo. Ash felt bad for lying to his friends and the professor. While he wasn't technically lying, most of what he said was true, aside from the fact that Rayquaza was a legendary. After everything that had happened tonight, he didn't want to add the whole "I suddenly captured a legendary" bit. He knows he'll eventually have to talk to them about it. But for now, he wanted to keep it a secret from everyone. Especially the bombardment of questions he'll receive. He just wanted to sleep. Wow! Bonnie exclaimed in excitement. I wanna see, repeated a jumping Bonnie, excited to see a new Pokemon. Clement shared his little sister's excitement. I also want to see your new Pokemon, Ash. He looked at the trainer. He's kinda shy, Ash said as Rayquaza slowly hid behind Ash's neck. Startled at the attention he was receiving. The professor closed his eyes and grasped the bottom of his chin. Humming to himself, I see. He muttered enough for everyone to hear. Clasping both of his hands he said, Don't worry Ash, your Pokemons are safe with me, he said, I'll do everything that I can to get them back to shape. Draining out all his worries, Ash smiled at the professor. Thanks Professor Sycamore, you're a big help. The professor smiled, You're welcome Ash, happy to be of an assistance to the young trainer. May I see this Pokemon of yours? Ash looked at Rayquaza and said, Don't worry buddy, he won't hurt you. Rayquaza, doubtful of his trainer, glanced at Professor Sycamore, who was smiling at him, then back to Ash. I promise you nothing bad will happen to you. I trust Professor Sycamore, he's a great guy. as he encouraged the small dragon, giving Rayquaza a thumbs up and a big smile. Taking in the reassurance, he trusted his trainer's judgment. He knew what was best for him. So he slowly nodded and slowly hovered from Ash straight towards the middle of the group. The professor's eyes widened when he saw the Pokémon. Fascinating, the professor said in awe. I've never seen a Pokémon like this, he continued. Bonnie and Clement shared the professor's amazement as they looked at the small green dragon. If the professor hasn't seen this before, then it must be a significant discovery or a brand new Pokémon. Clement was ecstatic, a brand new Pokémon, and they have the privilege to be the first to discover its species. Adjusting his glasses to get a better look, Clement studied the feature of the Pokémon. Long green with a serpent-like appearance, with 2 long antennae coming out from the top part of its head and 2 short ones at the bottom. Looking at its eyes, he saw nothing but mystery surrounding them. Bonnie, on the other hand, had sparkles in her eye. Wow! You look so adorable. Can I pet him? Can I carry him? Can I hug him? Think if he grows up he can give me a ride? She quickly asks, curious about the dragon, but mostly wanting to pet and cuddle with it. Rayquaza moved back a bit from the sudden outburst of the child. Professor Sycamore noticed the bruise and burn marks around it. He turned to Ash. What happened to him? He asked. He seems to have gotten in a very big fight, he said to Ash. Ash frowned. I don't know, Professor, I saw him like that when we first met. Thoughts of why he was in that state. Not so many Pokémon can go toe-to-toe with a legendary and leave them bruised up like that. Looking more closely to the Pokémon, Professor Sycamore saw the signature fins and yellow marking. Remembering one of his colleagues discussing an incident back a few years ago that happened in Hoenn, where a legendary appeared trying to battle the space Pokémon Deoxys. Professor Sycamore remembered he was given a picture. He'd try and find it to see if there was any connection. Ash was a bit nervous as he watched Professor Sycamore eyeing the dragon. He wasn't going to be shocked if the professor found out, considering he was Pokémon professor and a very well-known one. He'd bound to be connected with some other professors of different who's studying the region, Ash mused. Nodding to what just Ash said, he called his assistants and motioned for them to bring Pikachu and Rayquaza to the medical room. After a brief goodbye from Ash to Pikachu and Rayquaza, they were off. "Aw," Bonnie said in a disappointed tone. "I wanted to play with the new Pokémon," she pouted. Clement patted his sister on the head and said, "Pikachu and the Pokémon are both tired, they need to rest and heal up. But don't worry, you can play with them tomorrow if you want." Bonnie's disappointment was replaced with excitement and happiness as she happily nodded and went up into one of the guest rooms in the lab. Clement noticed Ash was looking down after saying goodbye to his 2 Pokémons. Sensing Ash's worries, he puts an arm on Ash's shoulder. "Don't worry, him and Pikachu are in good hands. Professor Sycamore will make sure they get the best treatment." Thankful to Clement, Ash smiled and agreed with Clement. "Yeah, you're right." Yawning, the weight of the events that transpired bearing down on Ash. "I need to get some rest," he stated to Clement. Nodding at the Kanto trainer, "I'll see you tomorrow then." "Good night, Ash," he said, going up the stairs to follow Bonnie. "Good night, Clement," replied the trainer. "Dreamland, here I come," Ash thought while going up into one of the rooms. In another part of Kalos, a honey-haired girl lazily sat on the couch with a tired expression on her face, grumbling something about Rhyhorn's racing and troublesome mothers. She lazily went over the coach, hovering in front of it for a good couple of minutes, then finally, feeling the weight of today's training taking a toll on her, suddenly dropped down on the coach. Finally getting a bit of rest. Facing the television, she grabbed the remote, then pushed a button to turn it on. She was greeted with a news report about an incident occurring in Lumio City where a rampaging Garchomp was flying through the streets firing hyper beams in every direction, causing panic and a bit of damage to nearby buildings. "It's like a movie," Serena though excitedly, forgetting about the havoc the rampaging Garchomp was causing, interested on the action that was happening, all of her attention focused directly on watching the news. The camera switches to Garchomp flying on top of the Prism Tower when something out of the corner of her eye got her attention. Shifting her gaze from the Garchomp to a black-haired boy. Serena's eyes instantly widened. Reaching out from her pocket, Serena grabbed a light blue handkerchief as she looked at the cloth with hope. Said cloth had a blue border design with a pokeball symbol at the bottom right. Clutching it with all her feelings while bringing it closer to her chest with one thing was running through her mind. "Is that you?" She looked back at the television, wanting to know more of what was happening and to see if it was truly the boy she met in Professor Oak's summer. Instead, her heart stopped when she saw the sight of the young trainer falling off the top of the prism tower. No, shooting forward with a worried look on her face, she silently prayed for the safety of the boy while looking at the screen. The falling form of Ash leaving a heavy feeling on her with every moment passing. Slowly, she closed her eyes as Ash was about a few meters away from the ground. When suddenly, a mysterious green blur caused her to open them up and gasp in surprise. As the unknown object suddenly flew away from the scene. Sighing in relief that Ash was safe. Serena was still worried about the boy after the mysterious thing flew off with him to Arceus knows where. Giving a minute to absorb what just happened. Serena looked down on the cloth she was holding, her worried eyes replaced with bright determination as she had a new goal in mind. "I have to find him," she shouted inside her head as she went up to her bedroom, emotionally and physically from practice and the rampant emotions stirring inside her. Outside of Professor Sycamore's lab stood Ash, Clement and Bonnie as they faced Professor Sycamore. "Thanks for letting us stay for the night, Professor, and also thanks for helping up Pikachu and my friend Pika," exclaimed Ash and Pikachu while Rayquaza nodded to the professor for treating his injuries, thankful for the professor's help. Not spoiling that Rayquaza was, in fact, a legendary. "Thank you for letting me play with all the Pokémons," followed by Bonnie. "Thanks for everything," said the final member of the group. "You're welcome all of you," Professor said in a warm and honest tone, "and I would like to find out more of that green Pokémon of yours, Ash," he said while looking at Rayquaza with tint of curiosity. "Sure, Professor. We'll help him too," Bonnie said happily. "It sure is a captivating Pokémon to study," Clement remarked. Chuckling and giving his thanks, Professor Sycamore gave Ash his Kalos Pokédex and with a final goodbye and thank you by the trio, were off but was stopped when Ash was hit by a frubble to the face which almost knocked Pikachu out of Ash's shoulder but maintained his place due to previous similar experience. Rayquaza surprised and ready to attack the source but he calmed down when he saw Froakie. Ash looked at the source of the frubble and found Froakie standing with a Pokeball. Ash ran towards Froakie and knelt down to see what the Pokémon wanted. "Froakie," he asked. "I think he wants to come with you, Ash," Professor Sycamore said while moving forwards towards the group. Froakie nudged the Pokeball towards Ash to prove what Sycamore said. "Wow, it picked you as its trainer, Ash," commented Clement in surprise. "Aw, that's cute," said Bonnie, seeing the scene made her want to jump. Grabbing the ball, Ash looked at Froakie with a determined look in his eye. "So what did you say, Froakie?" Froakie replied by jumping and tapping the ball with his limbs, causing him to be SCKED inside the ball. After tilting 3 times, he heard the ding signaling a successful capture. Smiling as from ear to ear, Ash held up the ball. "I caught." "Froakie," exclaimed Ash. He turned towards Rayquaza and Pikachu. "Froak is our official first Kalos Pokémon, Pikachu," Rayquaza, silently saying Rayquaza's name so the others won't hear him. Rayquaza happily roared, cheerful to see his trainer's enthusiasm and seeing how Pokémons are attracted by his radiating aura. "This will be interesting," he thought. It beats his boring life alone in the ozone layer. But now, he has friends that he can be with. "Pika Pie," said a happy Pikachu. Ash looked back at his human companions. "Let's go, guys." Onwards to the Kalos League, running through the streets. Bonnie ran after Ash with the same happy expression but turned to his brother when she saw him logging behind. "Come on, Clement. Stop being a slowpoke and hurry up." Running while heavily panting, Clement said, "Running's, really, not, my, forte," he said between pant, can't, walking, be, a, option, he asked in desperation. No, big brother, now move forward." Bonnie said as she pushed his heavily breathing brother trying to catch up to Ash. Professor laughed at the sight and shook his head. I think this won't be the last time I'll be seeing those kids, he chuckled as he went back inside the lab. Ash closed his eyes with a content look on his face. Hands behind his head as he relaxed to the peaceful tranquility being provided by the forest. He took in the robust smell of nature as they walked through the sea of trees. Feeling the forest breeze gave Ash a nostalgic feeling as he remembers his past adventures from Kanto, Johto, Sinnoh, Unova and now Kalos. Opening his eyes, he looked to the front at the blonde siblings who were further ahead of him. Bonnie and Clement asked to join him in his travels through the Kalos region, to which he happily agreed to. Having two natives of Kalos would make the trip easier and fun. He chuckled slightly watching the two siblings start to bicker about something he couldn't comprehend. Ash was used to this, his previous travels in Hoenn was a testament to that. They kinda remind me of Max and May, he pondered, a smile sneaking up to his face, remembering the constant arguments the two would get in. He looked up at his other companion who was happily flying through the forest but in his Pikachu size. Ash specifically told him not to change to his max size unless Rayquaza had to. It still baffled him how a legendary of all Pokemon would want to get captured and by him of all people. A sudden thought came into Ash's mind, wait a minute. He paused in thinking. Rayquaza's my Pokemon, right? He paused as if waiting for anyone to answer him, then that means. His eyes widened realization. He gulped at the thought of using Rayquaza after remembering what happened in Larue City. Pikachu noticed the change in Ash's expression, and tried to ask if anything was bothering his trainer. Pie. Ash squirmed and was brought out of his subconsciousness by Pikachu's voice. Turning his head to look at his best friend, Ash saw the quizzical look Pikachu was giving to him and sighed. Pointing up to the green serpent who was happily flying through the air. You know we're gonna have to battle with him sooner or later, buddy. Ash said, uncertainty filling his voice. Blinking at the question, Pikachu titled his head in confusion and turned to look at the green dragon. Yeah, what about it? Was something wrong about that? Most of the Pokemons that Ash has captured at one point fought in a battle. So what's so different with Rayquaza? Pika, he answered looking back at Ash, not really getting why he's asking him an obvious question. Sensing his partner's uncertainty, Ash tried to elaborate more. Remember Larue City in Hoenn, bud? The one where he, again pointing at the dragon, was chasing Deoxys? Pikachu's face turned into deep thought trying to recall what happened in Larue City. Collecting everything that he knew about the incident. He remembered Rayquaza getting furious at Deoxys for trying to trespass his territory, even going so far as to chasing him in Larue City. He also remembered the powerful high dash. His thoughts were cut short when he finally understood what Ash was saying. His face paled remembering the power of the legendary beast. Pika, he said getting a bit nervous at using the legendary. He turned to Ash who shared the same thought. Even if some of the gyms and people they have faced had legendaries. Rayquaza was still part of the weather trios, they basically made the earth they were standing in. But the gears inside Pikachu's head turned. An idea sprouted from his mind as he tried to explain it to his trainer. Pika. Pikachu. What did you mean? It's okay, let him have a go at it, Ash said in disbelief. Was his best friend actually implying him to use a legendary? Let me just remind you that he destroys meteors on a daily basis like it's a walk in the park, Ash said in a matter-of-fact tone. Pikachu gave him a look that said, you're an idiot. Ash ignored the look and continued, seriously Pikachu, who'd use a legendary in a league? That'd be too much, don't think. Nodding to himself for the logic, Ash had a look of satisfaction thinking this would surely silence his best friend. Pikachu held up his short arms as he made a counting fingers, Pikachu, Pika, Pikachu, Pika. As he trailed off listing all the people they fought who used legendaries. This caused Ash to lose his smug look as his cheeks suddenly turned red in embarrassment. Hey, that I didn't know that Tobias guy had a Darkrai and Latios, which was totally unexpected, he defended. Pika Pikachu Pika, Pikachu interjected as he frantically waved his hands in the air to emphasize his point. Bonnie looked at Ash, who was arguing with Pikachu. Is Ash alright, Clement? Bonnie asked in a hushed tone, pointing a thumb at the raven-haired trainer. Why do you ask, Bonnie? Asked Clement nonchalantly. Clement was too busy studying Rayquaza to see Ash and Pikachu's antics, said Pokémon was flying joyfully above them without a care to the world. Ever since they left Professor Sycamore's lab, Clement's curiosity about the Pokémon increased. Furthermore, Professor Sycamore said the Pokémon wasn't familiar to him. This meant a lot of things for Clement. If Professor Sycamore doesn't know anything about the weird Pokémon, then this is something new, never before seen by anyone else. New discoveries that could be found, increasing their knowledge of the vast Pokémon world. And Clement, being a man of science, was privileged to be in the front row seat of examining the Pokémon. Look, Bonnie pointed at Ash with a bit of annoyance, causing Clement to wince from the tone of her voice. Clement glanced at the arguing trainer and Pokémon behind them. Clement said with an odd look on his face. This was truly an unusual scene even for the gym leader. Ash and Pikachu were shouting at each other while Ash looked as if he understood every bit of what Pikachu is saying, or squeaking. Humming to himself, Clement suddenly remembered something he read during his time in the academy. They say that when a powerful bond between trainer and Pokémon is achieved, that bond causes both trainer and Pokémon to understand one another's feelings, Clement said with his index finger pointing up. Wow! Uttered Bonnie in amazement. Ash and Pikachu's bond must be pretty strong then. At first, Bonnie thought Ash was a rookie considering he only had a Pikachu when they met him. But after witnessing Ash in action, her opinion of him changed. But now, after learning from his brother that trainers could understand their Pokémon if their bond is strong, and for Ash and Pikachu to reach that, then Ash was far from being a rookie. Creating a strong bond with your Pokémon takes years of experience. Yeah. Ash sure keeps surprising us, Clement chuckled. Bonnie grinned, inspired by Ash and Pikachu. I want to have a strong bond with my Pokémon too. The idea of understanding Pokémons piqued her interest. Clement's face turned into an annoyed look. You need to stop asking random people to be my wife first, he exclaimed. Big brother, waving a finger at her brother, what if I'm not around you anymore? Who'd wake you up if you overslept? Who'd scold you when one of your inventions blow up? Who'd remind you to what, Ash? I get it. No need to finish that, exclaimed a flustered Clement, slumping down in defeat as fake tears rolled down his face. Bonnie could only smirk at his brother as she continued looking at the scenery around them, hoping to find a cute Pokémon, grinned Bonnie, while Clement went back to watching Rayquaza. Meanwhile, back with Pikachu and Ash. All the more reason to use a legendary, but Pikachu, he growled. His Pikachu actually had a good point, but to Ash was too stubborn to accept it. Pikachu only snorted at his trainer's annoyance. Okay. I get it. He slumped in defeat as gray clouds suddenly loomed over Ash's head. Battling with Rayquaza could give me an advantage and also leverage if someone decides to pull off another Latios and Darkrai. He shuddered at the thought. He didn't want another repeat of that painful defeat. He was close to winning the Sinnoh League until he faced Tobias. He wasn't prepared by all means to battle against two legendary Pokémon. Although receiving a bitter defeat, Ash was thankful for Tobias for giving him one of the most exhilarating league matches so far and was proud of his Pokémon's growth in strength, able to knock out two powerful legendary Pokémons, albeit all of them getting knocked out in the process. But this time, it'll be different, he thought to himself. This time we'll all be stronger, and no trainer with a team of legendary would stop us this time, ending his thought with a confident smile and a new resolve as his eyes fired up in determination. Pikachu looked at Ash's change in demeanor and blinked in confusion. Pika. 1 second ago he was sulking and now he was smiling, he thought. Pikachu's sweat dropped. I love him, I really do. But sometimes he's weirder than a Squirtle trying to learn Flamethrower. Ash clenched his fist with a smile. It'll be different, Pikachu, no more good ol Tobias to give us any surprise this time. We'll be ready for any legendary, big or small. To which the Pokémon squeaked in agreement. This time we'll win the Kalos League and show them our strength, he shouted with confidence as he threw his fist up, unable to contain the feeling of excitement. Finally understanding the sudden change in Ash's attitude, Pikachu quickly crawled up to Ash's head and stood with his own fist up, showing his very own excitement and determination to the notion of winning the league with Ash. Someone's eager to compete in the league, Clement spoke up with a smile. Your enthusiasm is really contagious, Ash. Just hearing your declaration fills me up with vigor and energy. Clenching both his hands, Clement could feel the spirit and determination that Ash was radiating was enough to make Clement vibrate in anticipation. Clement's admiration for the boy only grew as he heard Ash's dream of winning the league and becoming a Pokémon master. Wow, Ash! You and Pikachu sure are fired up, Bonnie said as she bounced up and down, feeling Ash's enthusiasm affecting her. Scratching his head, a bit embarrassed by his actions, we sure are. It's my dream to win the league and become a Pokémon master, he declared with pride. Ash was proud of his dream, so as his Pokémon, sharing them to others made only him and his Pokémons happy and fired up to battle stronger trainers. Hi Pikachu! Pikachu swatted Ash on the head with his tail, which made Ash stumble a bit while they walk. Ow, hey! Glaring at the yellow Pokémon, what? Pika! Hee hee, oh yeah, chuckled Ash while scratching the back of his head. Sorry, it's our dream. Me and my Pokémons. Ash smiled brightly, remembering that it wasn't just him that strived to be the best, but also his Pokémons. Remembering his best friend, Ash turned his back from Clement and Bonnie, making sure they couldn't hear him. Well, I guess you're right, buddy. But we should really ask Rayquaza if he wants to battle, Ash said, agreeing with his best friend, convinced by what he said. If Rayquaza didn't want to battle, he wouldn't force him to. A bit disappointed if Rayquaza says no, since adding a powerhouse like him would strengthen his team, but he didn't want Rayquaza to do something he didn't want to do. Ash cared about all of his Pokémon's feelings, he'd love them all even if they didn't want to battle. Pikachu nuzzled Ash to show that he's welcome. Thanks, buddy. He grinned to the Pokémon. Glad I could discuss this with ya. Ash scratched the back of Pikachu's ears. Pikachu leaned in and enjoyed the affectionate scratch from his trainer. Cha! Hearing his name, Rayquaza flew down next to Ash to see what they were talking about. Hey Rayquaza, happily acknowledging the dragon. Rayquaza replied by moving forward and nuzzling Ash. After hearing a few chuckles from the trainer, he retracted, pleased with the chuckles he got. Rayquaza titled his head as if asking Ash what they were talking about. Me and Pikachu were just wondering, Ash said, fidgeting, looking around the forest, unsure how to ask the legendary. But focused back on the question when Pikachu tapped him on the shoulders. If you want to battle with me, he finished. Rayquaza paused to look at Ash, thinking deeply about the offer. After a minute of silence, Rayquaza smiled and nodded to the trainer. Really? Rayquaza gave him another nod, amused by Ash's reaction. All right, he shouted, which caused Bonnie to jump in surprise. What happened, Ash? Rayquaza's gonna help me win the league. Ash quickly regretted uttering those words, slapping himself inwardly for being an idiot. Ray who? Asked Bonnie. Clement seemed to have heard Ash. Oh, nothing, haha, it's nothing. I thought it'd be a good name. Ash said quickly in a nervous voice, increasing the speed of his pace. Bonnie and Clement gave him a funny look, then paused to glance at each other. After a minute of silence, they shrugged to one another. Ash was weird enough, and seeing he wasn't ready to give them answer, they mentally decided to brush off the question about Rayquaza, also increasing their speed to catch up to the young trainer. Pikachu face-palmed while Rayquaza was left in a confused state by Ash's action. Nothing happening near Ash was a big understatement, since trouble seemed to love him. The gang saw a Deden, who was trying to get a fruit from a tree, but a Fletchling came out of nowhere and stole the berry. Ash decides to capture Fletchling but struggles due to its flying advantage. Ash had second thoughts of using Rayquaza but dismissed it when Froakie volunteered to battle Fletchling. Ash gave Froakie a chance to battle, struggling a bit due to Fletchling's advantage of flying. Ash made use of Froakie's amazing jumping skills and using an environment filled with cliffs and ledges to their advantage, beating Fletchling. Pikachu follows Dedenne into its burrow, which lead them at the base of a tall cliff, unable to get back to the rest of the gang. Team Rocket sees them. Since it was Pikachu, they went into capture mode, with Dedenne added to their hit list. The gang managed to find Pikachu and Dedenne, and a confrontation between Ash and Team Rocket soon followed. Ash glared at the trio on the Meowth balloon as he saw Pikachu on the ground next to a hurt Dedenne. "Won't you guys ever give up?" Ash said in annoyance. Ash was amazed by their persistence, but aside from that, they were nothing more than thorn to his side. "Not unless you give us your Pikachu twerp," Jessie laughed. "Better get comfy cause Team Rocket's not going anywhere," James finished with glee. "Leave Pikachu and Dedenne alone, you meanies," exclaimed an angry Bonnie. "Small twerps shouldn't meddle with adult business," Jessie said in a bored tone, flapping her hands in the air, making a shooing gesture to Bonnie. "Wabba." Wobbuffet saluted after suddenly coming out from his pokeball. "Do not call me small," said a fuming Bonnie. She crossed her arms and glared at Team Rocket, causing the Rocket trio to laugh. "Ah, we hurt the small twerp's feelings," James said mockingly, causing Bonnie's anger to rise. "Don't worry, maybe someday you'll grow up as beautiful as me." "Not that it'll ever happen," Jessie boasted while closing her eyes, absently admiring her beauty. "Fine by me. I'd never want to look like an old hag in the first place," Bonnie retorted, emphasizing the word old hag, causing Ash, Pikachu and regrettably Clemont to snicker. 0. The statement immediately caused Meowth and James to gulp and step back in fear. "What did you just say?" said a furious Jessie, whose hair was dancing around like a snake as an evil purple aura suddenly enveloped her. "You heard me," Bonnie said smugly. "A fossil like you must have taken centuries to dig up," she giggled. Ash and Pikachu couldn't hold it much any longer and dropped to the floor laughing hysterically, while Clemont was having a hard time trying to stand because of laughing too hard. Jessie was spewing steam from his ears, showing how furious she was from Bonnie's statement. "Why, I oughta dash," James tried to hold her back. Fortunately, he managed to do so. Ash and company soon regained their composure after laughing to the point where they couldn't breathe. Ash turned to Bonnie, who was scoffing at Team Rocket, then looked at Clemont, who was also regaining his senses. "I never thought Bonnie could be so." He trailed off. "Savage, big mouth, rude." Clemont finished with an embarrassed laugh. "I wouldn't say savage. More like brutally honest," he said, chuckling. "She's quite a handful," Clemont said, scratching the back of his head, looking back at Team Rocket being serious about the situation. Meowth ignored Jessie's crisis and turned to Dedenne and Pikachu with an evil look on his face while holding what appears to be a controller for something. "Now be a good Pokemon and come with us, Pikachu." He quickly pressed the remote as two mechanical arms suddenly appeared out from Team Rocket's balloon. Ash grinned his teeth, getting more annoyed as the time passed by. He was out of options. Froakie and Fletchling were too tired to fight. Bringing them out could only risk them to get captured. "Pika!" Pikachu said in surprise as arms suddenly grabbed him and Dedenne. "Pikachu!" "Dedenne!" both Ash and Bonnie shouted in concern. Ash clenched his teeth. He had to do something and fast. Glancing at the dragon next him, Ash had no choice. "Rayquaza?" he quickly asked. The dragon, who was also worried, looked at Ash and growled to show he was listening. "You need to change now." Rayquaza nodded at Ash and shot forward to get between Team Rocket and the two retracting mechanical arms. Team Rocket flinched in surprise to see the green dragon suddenly hovering in front of them with a piercing look directed to them. "Huh, what's that?" James said, pointing at Rayquaza. Finally letting go of Jessie, whose anger was replaced with curiosity by the appearance of Rayquaza. Meowth paused for a few seconds and examined the Pokemon. "Green, dragon, odd face that looks like an eel and those weird fins around its head. Everything suddenly clicked, remembering where he'd seen the green dragon before. Wait a minute. Meowth mused. Ain't dat Rayquaza, he said in surprise, causing his two partners to gasp. Now that you've mentioned it, he kinda looks like the Rayquaza we saw in LaRue City, James responded without taking his eyes off the legendary. What's it doing in the middle? Kalos then asked a confused Jessie. I thought that thing only lived in Hoenn. Beats me, Meowth shrugged. But I know one thing. The look it's giving us is making me chilly. Meowth shuddered at Rayquaza's gaze. Something's weird about it, Jessie said, looking the beast. Rayquaza growled, which made the trio flinch. Someone woke up by the wrong side of the bed, muttered James. Now that you mention it. It looked puny compared to the one we saw in LaRue City, added Meowth, putting paw on his chin while examining the Pokémon. Maybe it's a baby Rayquaza? James added with a look of confusion on his face. Baby or not? Imagine what the boss would say if we gave him a legendary. Jessie uttered with an evil look on her face while rubbing both hands together. We'd be promoted and get all the recognition we deserve, said Meowth with a dreamy look on his face. Capturing him will be a piece of cake. Meowth said confidently. Not like that small fry can do anything about it. Looking at his size, the three laughed. Rayquaza growled louder at Team Rocket. They weren't satisfied enough with trying to capture him, but now they decide to follow him and hurt his trainer, his friends. The idea didn't sit nicely with Rayquaza, and he'd make sure to make Team Rocket pay. Bright yellow light suddenly oozed out of Rayquaza, enveloping his body in yellow streaks of light like a miniature sun. Jessie, Meowth, not to burst your bubble, but is Rayquaza supposed to shine like that? James pointed at the yellow shining Rayquaza. Clement was surprised to see Rayquaza shining brightly. What in the world? He muttered, shielding his eyes from the light. Huh? Meowth and Jessie said in unison. Turning around, they were blinded by bright yellow lights emitted from Rayquaza. Using their arms to shield their eyes from the bright light, Jessie grunted from due to the brightness of Rayquaza. After a second the light died down. Adjusting their eyes and finally dropping their arms, only to be silenced by the thing in front of them. There stood Rayquaza, but instead of the Pikachu size they were expecting, it was replaced with a bigger Rayquaza the size of a Charizard. Now his features were more refined as he looked more feral than before. They shivered looking at the dark, mysterious eyes of the beast. Clement's mouth was open from what just happened. What in the world is going on here? What is that thing? Clement looked at Ash to see if he knew about this, but was surprised to see he didn't even react to Rayquaza's transformation. Meowth, do something about that. Jessie pointed a finger at Rayquaza. Dat thing's a legendary, just so's you know. Meowth said as flabbergasted, they weren't really ready to take on a Pokémon at this caliber. Alright Rayquaza, let's do this. Ash said as he pumped his fist into the air. Rayquaza glanced at then back the Rocket trio. Meanwhile, sweat appeared on Meowth's head as they were backed up in a corner. The sudden appearance of Rayquaza wasn't part of their plan. That's du Twape's Pokémon, he said in shock and surprise. He's controlling it. Both Jessie and James said. Impossible. Jessie said, even more startled. They just found out that Rayquaza was the twerp's Pokémon. Even more surprising is that he actually captured a legendary. They knew the twerp had a tendency to land in the most weirdest situations, which led to the twerp encountering mystical and legendary Pokémons, but out of all of them this one took the cake and he actually took a legendary. Panicking, Meowth rapidly pressed the red button on the remote he was holding. We only need Pikachu, we can bugger off after that, he explained to his teammates as the mechanical arms retracted back to Team Rocket. Receiving a slow nod from his companions. Rayquaza didn't agree with Meowth's plan and moved to intercept the retracting mechanical arms. James quickly reacted to the treat and threw a Pokeball into the air, and a small squid-like Pokémon materialized. Inca use Psybeam. James shouted, finally brushing off the fear of facing Rayquaza. Inca. Inkay did a handful of movements as a rainbow-colored beam shot forward from two of its tentacles towards the legendary Rayquaza. Rayquaza saw the attack and quickly moved upward, successfully dodging it. James gritted his teeth after seeing his attack failed. Rayquaza stopped in mid-flight and saw the two mechanical's noodle-like limbs retracting back. Darting towards it, he used his jaw and chomped on the vulnerable mechanical limbs, causing the two hands holding Pikachu and Deden to release them both. This caused Pikachu and Deden to fall off a great height. Jessie growled at the dragon in annoyance, "Why don't you find someone else to bother?" as tick marks appeared on her head. Pika. DDE, both Pikachu and Deden screamed as both of them were falling to the ground. The world just seemed to love seeing Pikachu fall from a great height. Rayquaza swooped down towards Pikachu and Deden, successfully catching them before they hit the ground. Pika. Deden, both Pokémon thanked Rayquaza. The dragon grunted in acknowledgement while looping back to face Team Rocket again. Good job, Rayquaza. Ash cheered his Pokémon. Getting fired up by the battle, he tried to order a command to the green dragon but stopped when it suddenly hit him. Rayquaza used Dash. Ash didn't know any of Rayquaza's move. Said dragon looked at his trainer with a look of confusion, waiting for his command. He mentally slapped himself for not even trying to find out, but to his defense he wasn't really expecting to find Team Rocket. Knowing them, he should have actually been prepared from the constant attacks he got from them. He sighed. "Why'd you stop, Ash?" Clement asked in confusion at the trainer suddenly stopping. Scratching his chin while slowly looking at the scientist, Ash said, "I don't know any of Rayquaza's moves," he said with an apologetic smile. He gave up on hiding Rayquaza's name. After all, Team Rocket kinda revealed everything. Bonnie and Clement's face fell to the ground as sweat drops appeared on top of their head. "Then why did you ask him to fight then?" shouted an angry Bonnie, angered by Ash's idiocy. "It was in the heat of the moment and we had no choice," he defended. "By the way, Ash, do you know what's going on with Rayquaza?" Hearing his name, Ash suddenly tensed and looked at Clement before sighing. "It's a long story, I'll explain everything when we get to Santalon City." Clement nodded, happy that he'll be getting answers later, then sighed when he remembered their current predicament. Putting a hand to his face, while making a mental note that Ash got carried away when battling. "Don't worry, we can still win this," Clement said as he held up a Pokeball. Only to get stopped by a hand to his face. "No, Clement. I trust Rayquaza, I know he can do this," Ash said in a confident tone. Clement looked at him with a bit of hesitation but nodded, trusting his new friend. "I might not know his moves, but you can learn a thing or two about your Pokémon when you battle with them," Ash said to the scientist while adjusting his hat. "Alright," Clement sighed, pocketing the ball, "I'll leave this to you and Rayquaza," he ended. Ash might look like a fool, but his battling skills rivaled that of a gym leader, plus his unorthodox fighting style was quite effective in a match. Ash beamed at the scientist, thanking him for giving them a chance. A roar from the dragon got his attention and he looked up in the sky to see Rayquaza looking at Team Rocket. "You ready, buddy?" he shouted at Rayquaza, to which the dragon roared in return. "Alright. Now show them what you've got." Rayquaza roared and shot forward and opened its mouth as ball of yellow energy formed inside of it. "It's using Hyper Beam," Clement explained. Ash silently thanked Clement for the information and focused back to Rayquaza. "Hyper Beam off the bat. You really are powerful, Rayquaza," he cheered to the dragon. "This is bad," James muttered in fear. "You don't say, Sherlock," Jessie said in annoyance. "Not only does the twerp have a legendary, but he also got Pikachu back." She threw a glare at the trio on the ground. "We have better things to worry about than that," Meowth said, pointing at the incoming dragon. Rayquaza shot the Hyper Beam, which surprised everyone. The attack was bigger and looked more powerful than an average Hyper Beam. "Whoa," Ash said in amazement. "That's no average Hyper Beam," Clement said, sharing everyone's surprise. Was Rayquaza, he deemed after hearing Team Rocket's conversation, this powerful? What's more to this Pokémon that they didn't know? "Pretty," Bonnie said, mesmerized by bright yellow light made by the attack. "Wobbuffet go." Jessie quickly said horror, use mirror coat. Wobbuffet finally made an appearance jumping between the attack and Team Rocket. His whole body laminated like glass. The attack hit him dead on, grunting to the sheer force as it slowly pushed him back. He arched forward as the beam seemed to drill his coat. Jessie looked in concern, thinking that it might have been a bad idea. Wobbuffet stood his ground and continued to take on the attack, but finally managed to deflect it back to Rayquaza while being thrown back by the force of it. "You did it," cheered the three-Team Rocket as Jessie catched Wobbuffet in a hug while congratulating him. "Wobba," he saluted, but not without fidgeting, a bit hurt by the attack. Ash's eyes widened and quickly ordered Rayquaza to dodge the attack, but it was too late. The attack hit the legendary with double the power, causing a massive explosion that shook the ground to occur, followed by a huge dust cloud, causing Ash to cough a bit. After a few seconds, Rayquaza appeared out of the smoke and was plummeting down to earth. Swaying from side to side, it was clear he wasn't in control. The trio gasped in horror after seeing the falling form of Rayquaza. "Diden," Bonnie said while looking at the falling form of Rayquaza. "Rayquaza! Pikachu!" Ash shouted in distress, sprinting towards Rayquaza, almost tripping on his own 2 feet. He stopped when Rayquaza crashed hard onto the ground, leaving a huge trail of dirt. He continued on running, following the trail of dirt. Once he reached Rayquaza, he saw the dragon surrounded by bruise and scorch marks. Beside him was Pikachu and Diden, who didn't look any better than Rayquaza. "Pika!" Pikachu muttered in a raspy voice. "Pikachu!" Ash quickly went over to the mouse Pokemon and knelt down to scoop him up with both hands. Ash's worried look only intensified seeing the state of his best friend. Pikachu reassured his trainer by waving a hand to the air. He experienced far worse things than this. "Pikapi!" groaned Pikachu. Ash smiled a bit by Pikachu's action, slowly rubbing the Pokemon's cheeks. Bonnie came, followed by Clement, who looked a bit exhausted from running. Moving to the other side of Rayquaza where a battered Diden rested. "Diden," she said. Her voice was slow and raspy. The sight of the fragile mouse all bruised and covered in burnt marks nearly killed her heart. "Let me take a look at him," said Clement. He knelt down to examine Diden. After a few moments he grabbed his bag and opened it up to get a spray filled with green liquid. He pointed the spray at some of the bruise and burn marks of Diden, making the mouse flinch but slowly relaxing as the effects of the potion. "There. That should do the trick," Clement said, returning the potion in the bag. He looked at Bonnie with a reassuring smile. "Diden will be fine. That potion will be enough for now until we get to a Pokemon Center." Bonnie thanked her brother, not without mimicking Ash's action, cradling Diden on her arms. A low groan from Rayquaza snapped everyone's attention as Ash, from his position on the ground, shifted his body to face the legendary. His smile disappeared and was back to a frown when he saw the legendary's condition. He laid one hand on top of Rayquaza's head, trying to comfort the Pokemon. Clement and Bonnie remained silent, giving Ash all the attention. "Are you okay?" he said. Rayquaza gave him a slow nod dejectedly, which made Ash's heart tighten. He looked down on the hard ground. Thinking about his mistake, he should have warned Rayquaza not to underestimate Team Rocket. He should have told him to slow down. He should have accepted Clement's help. Things might have been different if he accepted Clement's offer. A soft growl from Rayquaza caused him to look at the Pokemon. Rayquaza's head leaned on Ash's hand, trying to dispel Ash's self-hating. He was the one who fired the Hyper Beam, not Ash. If anyone was to be blamed, it was him. Rayquaza slowly tried to hover back up, the pain causing him to drop back down. Ash saw Rayquaza movement. His Pokemon was hurt, and he didn't want Rayquaza to fight again. In all honesty, Clement's Bunnelby could probably take of Team Rocket. Rayquaza tried hovering up again, with more success, but still trembling and swaying as he tried to find his balance. He finally managed to levitate beside Ash, giving a trainer a look that said, "I'm not giving up that easily." Ash saw this and knew Rayquaza was itching for a rematch. He smiled at the dragon, giving his support and understanding what he wants. Slowly standing up, Ash walked to Clement handing him the hurt Pikachu. "Can you look after him for me?" he asked. Clement gave him a smile and said, "Sure. But do you really want to use Rayquaza again? That mirror coat's going to give you a lot of problem." Ash briefly looked at the dragon then back to Clement. "If Rayquaza still wants to fight, then I'll trust him," he said while slowly walking back next to Rayquaza. "Besides, knowing those goofballs," he jabbed a finger to Team Rocket, "I think we still have a chance," he slightly chuckled. Clement nodded and went back to his sister. Finally done with the matter at hand, Ash and Rayquaza faced the celebrating Team Rocket with a look of confidence. "Ready for a round 2, Rayquaza?" he peered to the dragon beside him who gave him curt nod. "All right then," he adjusted his hat. "Oh look, the twape came back, FO another beating," Meowth snickered while pointing a paw at Ash and Rayquaza. "Well, how about we teach him a lesson, Wobbuffet go," Jessie exclaimed. As Wobbuffet stood in front of the basket. "You might have a legendary, but that won't make a difference with Wobbuffet in our side," laughed James, arms folded. "We'll just see about that," Ash smirked, developing a plan in his head. "Rayquaza, you're gonna have to trust me on this one," the dragon gave him a look but nonetheless noted. "Use Hyper Beam," he shouted. Which caused Clement to look at him as if he was crazy. Team Rocket only laughed. Give credit to the twerp when he's being an idiot. Without hesitation, Rayquaza opened up his mouth as yellow energy gathered inside of it. Feeling the built-up energy was enough, he aimed it on Team Rocket's balloon. Rayquaza released the gathered energy and a beam of light was soon traveling towards Team Rocket with immense speed. "Wobbuffet, use Mirror Coat and show the twerp who's boss," Jessie commanded. Wobbuffet gave a salute and jumped towards the hyper beam, focusing all his attention on repelling the incoming attack. Ash smirked, all according to plan. "Now Rayquaza, use that speed of yours and get higher up the sky." Rayquaza wasted no time and flew upwards with a burst of speed. The action caused Jessie to gasp in surprise. "Now dive into Wobbuffet, full speed Rayquaza," he ordered. Rayquaza stopped ascending, then turned towards the direction of Team Rocket as it dived. His body suddenly transformed into a green light as he sped down to the unaware Wobbuffet. Ash and company looked in awe and surprised at Rayquaza's attack. "Wow!" Clement said in astonishment. Rayquaza just kept surprising them, now seeing him battle. And appears to be using a unique attack. He couldn't be more eager to report this all back to Professor Sycamore. Plus to get answers from Ash. "Rayquaza's powerful, isn't he, brother?" Bonnie exclaimed, to which Clement gave her a silent nod. Ash was simply amazed by this. He didn't know his simple orders were actually a real move. He suddenly grinned from ear to ear, looking forward to use Rayquaza in future battles. "Ow boy!" Meowth muttered, shielding his eyes. "This is gonna hurt," James said, closing his eyes. Jessie looked horrified at the incoming Rayquaza. They were played like a fiddle by the twerp. The hyper beam was just a diversion to cover up Rayquaza's original attack. Quickly whipping his head to Wobbuffet, who was too busy to notice the fast-moving Rayquaza. "Wobbuffet, that's just a ruse," Rayquaza's attack dash. She was too late as Rayquaza slammed onto Wobbuffet with tremendous force, sending him back like a bullet towards Team Rocket. "Wobbuffet!" he cried in pain. As soon as Wobbuffet hit the balloon, the large momentum from Rayquaza's attack caused them to be thrown upwards into the sky. "Ugh! I hate that twerp," Jessie said, biting the bottom of her shirt. They were soaring up in the sky, another failed attempt to capture Pikachu. "Well, we weren't expecting to fight a legendary though," James said, trying to calm down a raging Jessie while also being in the same position. "Well, look at the bright side," Meowth confidently said. "What bright side?" Jessie fumed. "The twerp has a legendary now." "How'd he even do that?" she asked in disbelief. Dismissing her, Meowth continued, "That means more chance to catch a legendary," he grinned evilly. "You're right," Jessie said, her mood changing. "Ahem," James said, gesturing to their current position. Meowth and Jessie blinked at him, then suddenly had a look of understanding. "Oh yeah," they both said. "We're blasting off again," they said, disappearing into the sky with a twinkle. "Wabaya!" Rayquaza roared at Team Rocket's direction from the sky. Satisfied with his work, he flew down to the group as he saw Ash sprinting towards him with a huge smile on his face, followed by a cheering Bonnie and an amazed Clemont. "You were amazing, buddy," Ash hugged the dragon, to which he got a growl of appreciation. "That move that you did was awesome," flailing his arms into the air. Followed by Pikachu, who seemed fit to walk. Pikachu congratulated. "Indeed, your sudden transformation is very intriguing," Clemont said, adjusting his glasses. "I could also feel the power of that attack. You truly are amazing." "Wow! Wow!" cheered an energetic Bonnie, agreeing with his brother. "You're so powerful, Rayquaza." Patting the dragon's head, Rayquaza smiled down at the girl, happy to see her impressed by his performance. With a glow of light, he transformed back to his Pikachu size and laid on the left side of Ash's shoulder. Ash couldn't stop grinning. "All right. Kalos League, here we come," Ash said, pumping a fist into the air. The action caused his companions to laugh at Ash's actions. Calming down from his outburst, the group suddenly heard a squeak from the ground. Dee, an orange mouse, faced Clemont. "I wonder what he wants," Ash said, looking at the small orange mouse. Bonnie had a stars in her eyes as he excitedly stood hovering over Deden. "Do you want to come with us?" Do you? She repeated. Clemont saw the mouse Pokemon nod. "Well, that's quite surprising," he said. It must have taken liking to Bonnie when he saw how concerned she was about him. Deden happily nodded again, climbing on top Bonnie's head, making the blonde girl laugh. "Can we keep him? Please?" Bonnie gave Clemont a puppy look that no one could resist. "I promise to take absolute care of him," she pointed at the orange mouse. Clemont for a moment then looked at Ash. Said trainer gave him an encouraging look. "Don't worry, Clemont, we'll help her take care of Deden." "Pikachu," agreed Pikachu, who was now on Ash's shoulder. Clemont sighed and agreed to catch Deden. "You promise to take good care of him?" "That means grooming, feeding and keeping him in shape," he went on. Bonnie quickly nodded and gave her brother a bright smile. "I promise." Smiling at the young girl. "I see you look dedicated to the job." He grabbed a Pokeball from his pocket, then looked at the Pokemon on top of his sister's head. "You ready?" he asked. Deden gave a happy nod. With this, Clemont tapped Deden with a Pokeball, causing the Pokemon to be sucked in by the Pokeball. The ball twitched a couple of times, then ticked, signifying a successful capture. Clemont held the Pokeball and did a pose quite similar to Ash, with Bonnie behind him doing peace sign and a wink. "I caught a Deden." He released the Pokemon, who looked happy to be part of the group. It then hopped onto Bonnie, which made the girl giggle. "Oh. You'll have lots of fun with us, Deden," she said, twirling the orang Pokemon in the air. "Dee," chirped the mouse. "I don't know about you guys, but I'm itching to battle the Santolin gym," Ash said as made his way back to the road. Pipika. Rayquaza was too tired to cheer and decided to stay quiet. Bonnie and Clemont could only laugh at Ash and Pikachu's sudden outburst. Then Clemont's face turned serious as he spoke. "Ash," he began. Ash held up a hand and said, I know. He said tiredly. "But once we get to Santolin City," he declared. Clemont nodded. Bonnie looked at the two, then raised an eyebrow. "Something's up," she said, causing the two to look at him. Ash scratched the back of his head and said, "I'll explain everything later, promise." Bonnie pouted, then smiled. "Okay. You better tell or else," she warned. Ash nodded with a shudder. Changing the subject and ran while shouting, "Time to get my first Kalos badge." Bonnie and Clemont could only laugh at Ash's sudden outburst, following him as they headed for Santolin City. "Where is it?" Where is it? Where is it? Shouted an agitated Ash as he ran towards a medium-sized water fountain, jumping on top of the outside stone ledge around it. The action caused him an odd look from the people and Pokémon around the area. Swinging his head from side to side, he tried to get a better picture of his surroundings. Around the fountain was an open space for people and Pokémon to interact. Beyond that, the fountain was surrounded by large two-story foot structures supporting European-esque look, untouched by the modernizing age which has the comfort to the trainer. Santalin City was smaller compared to Lumiose City, but trying to find a Pokémon Center was still quite hard. Unlike Lumiose, which heavily focused on commercialism, Santalin opted for a more cultural and a hushed environment compared to the never-sleeping city. This wasn't a problem for the native Cantonian. He wasn't used to clamorous cities with a lot of people like Lumiose, being born in Pallet Town, which was secluded and further away from the main hotspots of the Kanto region, like the big city of Saffron, which was home to Sliff Company, or Celadon, the most populated city in Kanto. He was used to living in a quiet atmosphere provided by Pallet Town and its forest. Although some Pokémon would cause a bit of noise, it wasn't too loud that it was disturbing anyone. Pikachu hopped on top of Ash's head, also looking for a certain building they'd been dying to find, as his eyes darted from left to right. He was rather doing well considering he got a light treatment from Clement back in the forest. Rayquaza, on the other hand, was still affected by the beating he took from Team Rocket a few days ago. Clement couldn't treat him because he didn't exactly know how to treat Rayquaza. Using a potion might have been an option, but he dismissed the idea, saying it might cause a bad reaction. Rayquaza simply slumped down on Ash's left shoulder, too tired to even fly. They were soon followed by a panting Clement, who tried as he might, couldn't keep up to the energetic Ash and a red-faced Bonnie, embarrassed by Ash's action. "Big brother, we really need to work on your stamina," Bonnie said disappointedly with a sigh escaping her lips. Clement couldn't retort, too tired from running, and simply collapsed to the ground. "Dee Deden said, jumping down from Bonnie's hand to look at the tired scientist. The little blonde girl could only put a hand on her head. Why was her brother so physically frail? Switching her attention to Ash, who was still on his spot on the fountain, she stomped over to the trainer, with an irritated look on her face. "Get down from there, Ash, and keep your voice down, you're embarrassing us," berated Bonnie to the raven-haired trainer while gesturing to the crowd around them. Ash stopped his search and looked at Clement's sister. "I can't help it." Throwing both hands in the air. "I've been itching to get my first badge, and it's been a while since I battled." Their conflict with Team Rocket might have given him a gauge on Rayquaza's level of power, but he wanted to test it on a powerful gym leader. What's not the perfect time to use him for his first official Kalos gym battle, a declaration to Kalos that Ash Ketchum's rough and ready for Kalos. "Pika," squeaked Pikachu, agreeing with his trainer. "Didn't you battle Team Rocket?" Bonnie crossed her arms under her chest as she looked at the trainer. "And were almost beaten to a pulp," continued Bonnie. "But that was days ago," Ash retorted. "And I didn't even know any of Rayquaza's moves back then." "And whose fault was that?" Bonnie continued with a raised eyebrow. "We had all the time, before stepping in that forest, for you to find out that things," pointing at Rayquaza, who was too tired to look. "Moves," she finished. "Well, Ash tried to say a comeback but couldn't think of any, but quickly shut her mouth. Pikachu patted his trainer on the shoulder, trying to at least comfort his trainer. Being beaten by a minor in an argument was damaging to one's pride, as Pikachu thought. Ash looked at the stares he was getting and slowly went down the fountain with a defeated look. Scratching the back of his head. "I guess you're right," he said silently. He didn't want any more of the attention falling down on him. Clement, who had been silent throughout the conversation, finally stood up, having regained his breath. "I hate to say this," he spoke up with a bit of tiredness, causing the group to look at him. "But Bonnie's right, your Pokémons aren't really fit to fight at the moment," he said as he made his way to the group, patting off some dirt from his blue jumpsuit. Visiting a Pokémon Center might be a good idea for now. Ash knew this. He wasn't really planning to battle Viola right off the bat. He just wanted to meet her considering she was Alexa's sister and was curious about her gym's speciality in terms of Pokemon type. He also wanted to get Rayquaza treated as soon as they meet Alexa's sister. We should probably rest a day or two, after what happened in the forest. I think we deserve a little break and stock up in supplies, informed Clement, to which Bonnie was squealing in delight. Hear that, Deden? She asked the orange mouse while picking him up. We get to go sightseeing around the city, she said happily, causing Deden to squeak in excitement. Nay nay. Different new Pokemons we could see. Nay nay. Exploring different shops to our heart's content. Nay nay. Rare flowers only found in Dash. Suddenly her attention was stolen by a Furfrou and its trainer passing by. A Furfrou and her trainer look like a keeper, Bonnie said, eyes sparkling as she planned to make her move on the unsuspecting trainer. Followed by a squeaking Deden who was trying to catch up to Bonnie. Ash, Clement and Pikachu, all sweat dropped at Bonnie's childish action and antics. Heart of a child, but the mouth of an adult, Ash grumbled under his breath. Pikachu Pika, said his best friend, trying to defend Bonnie a bit. You're only saying that because she gives you back massage, Pikachu. Ash retorted in a bored tone, to which the Pokemon shrugged. Ash ignored the yellow Pokemon. Think she's going to be okay? Turning to the scientist, who was slightly worried and nervous about Bonnie, knowing all too well what her little sister capable of. Especially when it came to girls. I think she'll be, alright. As long as she doesn't make a scene, Clement said nervously, his statement turning more into a question. He noticed the Furfrou slightly growling at Bonnie, who was getting too touchy with its trainer. His instincts suddenly kicked in when he saw Bonnie kneeling down while grasping the trainer's right hand. The latter was surprised by this and could only smile awkwardly at the young blonde. Quickly turning to Ash, maybe not, as he hurriedly scampered off to Bonnie to defuse the situation. Bonnie! How many times do I have to tell you to cut that out, as his voice got fainter by the distance. Ash sighed. This is gonna be a long 3 days. Giving a final glance at Clement, who ceased Bonnie's matchmaking attempt before she became Furfrou Chow, while repeating a mantra of apologies to the Furfrou's owner, who was blushing like crazy by Bonnie's proposal. He turned his head to the road. His new task, to locate a Pokemon Center. Alexa's sister would have to wait. Rayquaza was still badly hurt from the encounter with Team Rocket. Finding a Pokemon Center was his top priority at the moment. Alright Pikachu, let's go find Dash. He was cut off by the sound of a camera flashing. The trainer turned to the source of the sound and saw a blonde girl wearing sleeveless shirt and grayish-green cropped pants with lots of pockets and a white belt. Down to her feet she was wearing brown ankle boots with laces that match her trousers and a matching sweatband on her left wrist. Red hat, blue jacket and a Pikachu. Bingo, I've finally found you, said the girl, causing Ash to stare at her. Huh. Viola ignored it and tried to do a bit of teasing on the young trainer. So you're the cutie that my sister's been telling me about, Viola said, winking at the raven-haired trainer. The statement caused an immediate reaction on Pikachu and Ash, freezing them to the ground as both of them looked at Viola like she uttered a forbidden scripture from the holy book of things not to say to a random person in public that might cause misunderstanding. While Rayquaza, living outside of Earth's atmosphere, had no clue about human intercommunication, looked back and forth at Pikachu and Ash. Was something wrong? RA, he tried, but to no avail. He then looked at the blonde woman. Something she said turned his trainer into a living statue. Carefully studying her, there wasn't anything out of the blue about her. Viola giggled and moved towards the trainer. You should have seen the look on your face. Ash and Pikachu didn't budge and continued to stare at her. While Rayquaza eyed her wearily. Viola continued giggling as she stopped in front of the trainer. I was just teasing you, by the way, she said, poking the trainer on the cheeks. I never thought I'd get that kind of reaction from you, giving another brief laugh. Well, Ash started while rubbing the back of his head. Who are you anyways? It wasn't out of the norm that random people would approach him, but this was a whole new kind of random. Most of the people he met didn't introduce them with, "You're the cutie," apart from Melody, who gave him a kiss on the cheeks. Blushing as he remembered the feeling of getting kissed by a girl. Viola noticed the red tint and inwardly smirked. "That's not important right now," she then locked arms with Ash, causing the trainer to fidget in nervousness. "Relax, I don't bite. I'm just here because I heard a certain trainer was making a scene in one of the districts." Pikachu inwardly laughed at his trainer's ordeal while Rayquaza. Well, Rayquaza was still confused. "That would probably be me." Ash scratched the back of his head, whose face finally recovered from an extreme case of blush overdose. "So I see. And judging from you and your Pikachu's little scene on the fountain," the statement Ash to duck his head under his jacket from embarrassment. "You're not from around here, are you?" Ash looked at the blonde and nodded. "Right. My name's Ash and these are my two buddies Pikachu and Dash." Ash paused, thinking of a name to hide Rayquaza's true identity. "Quaza and those," pointing at the arguing Clement and Bonnie, "are my friends. Me and Pikachu came all the way from Kanto to challenge the gym leaders and enter the Kalos League," he ended with a smile. "Pika." Pikachu silently whispered to Ash, to which the trainer ignored. Viola pet an eyebrow to the trainer. "Kanto, huh?" she said, "You're quite far away from home. What made you want to enter the Kalos League?" Viola already knew why, thanks to her sister. She just wanted to hear it from the boy himself. Rayquaza, sensing that Ash was about to declare his dream again, positioned himself on top of the trainer's head, causing said trainer to chuckle. Ash felt a built-up of energy inside him as he briefly detached himself from Viola. He looked at the blonde and grinned as he started to share his dream. "It's my dream to become a Pokemon master," clenching his fist as his heart burned up in vigor. "And our dream," Dash, gesturing to Rayquaza, who started hovering on top of Ash's head, and Pikachu, who mimicked his trainer. "To become the best of the best. With new Pokemon and a new region, there's bound to be more and harder challenges. Entering the Kalos League will show us how far we've come and how close we are to our dream." He pumped his fist up, to which Pikachu copied Pika, while Rayquaza roared in agreement. Although hurt, he was enthusiastic when it came to declaring the goal Ash shared to him. Viola stared at the trainer and felt the surge of energy that Ash radiated. She couldn't help but admire the boy. She could feel the drive and passion from his declaration. The honesty and resolve for his goal consumed her like the fire that brightly burned, blinding anyone who looked at the trainer. "So this is what Alexa's been talking about," she smiled, raising her camera and taking another snapshot of Ash. The trainer sheepishly rubbed the back of his head while Rayquaza stared at the camera with newfound wonder. "You have one big dream, Ash. With that kind of attitude I'm sure you'll eventually reach it," she said. His declaration fueled her the shutterbug inside her as she looked forward to battling the trainer. He did say he wanted to challenge the Santalon City gym leader. She'll make sure to give Ash a picture of a battle he won't forget. "And it's nice to see your Pokemon shares the same passion as you. With them by your side, you'll surely surpass any challenges ahead of you." Like a photo, all the elements blend with each to create the perfect shot. Viola raised both her hands, his index and thumb fingers shaped into a frame. Ash nodded, taking in what Viola said. "So how about you, Dash?" "Viola." "The name's Viola," she interrupted. "Viola. Do you know anything about Santalon City?" Ash asked, having a guide would help his search for the Pokemon Center. Viola puffed and looked at the trainer with a confident smile. "You're looking at none other than Santalon City's professional bug-type photographer extraordinaire. Of course, I know about Santalon City. From every street, corner, to the trees, the vibrant flowers that screams of a perfect shot. I know Santalon like the back of my hand." Ash and Pikachu stared in awe, while Rayquaza was new to the concept of photo and photographer and was curious about it. "Wow! That's so cool. Could you show me some of them?" Viola smiled from ear to ear, seeing Ash's eagerness to see her masterpieces. "Sure, why not?" she eagerly replied. She suddenly saw Rayquaza, which piqued her interest at the moment. She hasn't seen any Pokemon like this before. Considering she's a gym leader and the Pokédex was pretty much hammered into her mind, courtesy of her eldest sis, this could be a recent new Pokemon. Rummaging her pocket to grab her Pokédex, Viola pointed the device towards the green Pokemon. The Pokédex made a few beeping sound and scanned Rayquaza. After a few seconds, she was surprised by the result. Scanning complete, no information found. No info found, she thought, repocketing the Pokédex. She'll ask Professor Sycamore about this later. Quaza was it? I haven't seen any Pokemon like it. She studied the dragon as it moved closer to her, examining her camera. You're really intrigued about this, aren't you? The dragon nodded. Well, this is a camera, holding up the device. We use this to capture photos like so. She snapped a picture of Rayquaza, to which the dragon jolted back in surprise. So you can treasure memories and keep them to look back in the future, she finished, showing the small screen on the camera revealing a picture of Rayquaza. The dragon eyes widened in surprise and marveled at the camera. She called the thing as it showed his face on it. He hovered next to Viola, captivated by the photo like he was staring at his own reflection, causing the blonde photographer to giggle. We found him in the woods near Lumio City, looking exactly like that but much worse. Professor Sycamore treated him, and after that, Quaza decided to join us on our trip. A few days ago an evil organization called Team Rocket tried to steal our Pokemon, so Quaza taught them not to mess with us. Which ended up in a fight, leaving him badly hurt. Ash half lied. Pikachu understood why Ash wanted to keep Rayquaza's secret. It might cause unwarranted attention. Viola nodded and her face showed sympathy for the dragon after learning that he's been through a lot. To go up against an organization like that. Rayquaza must be powerful to have fought them off. Ash nodded. He might be small, but he's no pushover, that's for sure, not bothering to mention Rayquaza's size-related powers. The fewer people who know the better, he thought. Quite fascinating. Do you know anything about him? Viola asked as she took another photo of the dragon. To which Rayquaza was happy to allow. Ash shook his head. No Pokédex entries about him. She'd probably try and use a Pokédex on Rayquaza anyways, might as well tell her Rayquaza was an undiscovered. An unknown Pokemon, She might have a word with other gym leaders about this. Rayquaza, content with the new knowledge, flew back to Ash's shoulder. Anyways, you were looking for a Pokemon Center, right? Well, look no further, she exclaimed. There's one near us, it's only a few blocks away. Ash thanked Viola for her assistance and asked if he could do anything to repay her. Viola shook her head. It's okay, I'm just happy to help a trainer like you. Your declaration also fueled my dream of getting the perfect shot, she said with excitement. I'm also willing to show you the way to the gym after Rayquaza gets treated. Ash beamed at the blonde. Thank you so much. You're welcome, she said, turning to Clement and Bonnie. Should we get your friends? She asked. Ash waved a hand. They'll be fine. Besides, does it look like they're going to be done soon? Viola tilted her head to the right to get a view of the two siblings behind Ash. She thought for a moment and shook her head. By the time they're done I'd probably have my 5th badge, he joked. And I really need to get Rayquaza to a Poke Center ASAP. To which Viola nodded. If this becomes a norm, you might not make it in time for the league. She sweat dropped, leading the way to the Pokemon Center. I hope not, Ash grimaced. Pikachu. Agreed. Rayquaza roared softly as he went back to Ash's shoulder. He didn't know what the league was, but it seemed important to his trainer. He'd ask Pikachu about that later. Serena sighed in satisfaction as she took another sip from her cup. The taste of mocha sending shivers throughout her body, savoring every ounce of the beverage as it went down her system. Fun, squealed her fox companion on top of the table, who was happily eating from a small bowl. Reaching to the Pokemon, do you like it, Fennekin? Said Serena, stroking the fox's fur. The yellow strands of hair playfully covering the trainer's hand, the soft texture left a delighted feeling to the trainer. Fennekin agreed on the Pokemon, liking her lips, cleaning out some traces of poke food on her mouth. They were currently in a cafe between Lumiose and Santalon City. Taking a break from walking for 4 hours non-stop. It took a toll, mainly her feet, on the fresh trainer. Serena wasn't used to traveling from long distance on foot. She was used to riding a Rhyhorn whenever her mum decided to bring her along to one of her seminars, as she would say it. Although the ride can sometimes be bumpy, it beats walking by a long shot. Serena slumped back in her seat. Gathering up her thought, her plan was to catch up to Ash in Santalon City. According to Professor Sycamore, Ash and company left Lumiose's lab a day after she came. Apparently, they were also heading for Santalon City for Ash's gym battle. Armed with the knowledge, Serena decided to reunite with her long-lost friend. "Fun?" asked Fennekin. "Nothing, girl," she stated. "Nothing." After an hour of waiting, Ash's new Pokemon finally got healed up after another rough experience thanks to Team Rocket. He was hoping that the start of his journey would be smooth cruising at the most, but life had other plans for him. Not even a week after the incident in Lumio City, Rayquaza was all beat up again. Which made him wonder. Was it actually safe to bring Rayquaza along? Shaking the thought, he continued stroking Rayquaza's small slender form to which the Pokemon enjoyed. Instead of his usual position on Ash's shoulder, he was being carried by Ash with both arms like how Misty carried Togepi, albeit his whole body was slightly coiled like a snake. "So now that you Pokemon are all healed up, I'm betting you're eager to challenge the Santalon gym leader," Viola stated as she accompanied Ash outside the Pokemon Center. She wasn't going to tell Ash that she was the gym leader. That would spoil the fun. She giggled, anticipating Ash's expression when he finds out. "That's worth 1,000 shots," she thought. Ash was quite fun to talk to in her opinion. She found that anything weird is pretty much okay with Ash, as if weird is part of his everyday life. It's very comforting and relaxing to talk to Ash, as anything was a topic to the young trainer. His views and enthusiasm made her interested in the future of the self-proclaimed Pokemon Master, to which she fully supports. "You got that right," Ash grinned at the older blonde. "Pika Pika. R.A." Pikachu and Rayquaza simultaneously said to Ash from both shoulders. Healed up and fully rested, both Pokemon were energized and ready to go. The bruises that were previously surrounding Rayquaza was long gone and replaced with his shiny emerald scale. The same could be said with Pikachu. Ash's eyes widened as he realizes what both Pokemon are trying to say. Viola looked at Ash with a raised, he seemed to understand every bit of what they said, albeit it was only a squeak and a roar. They did say that a Pokemon and trainer's bond surpasses any language barrier. It's still odd since he only got Rayquaza a week ago from what Ash told her. "Oh shoot, I almost forgot about Clement and Bonnie." As if on cue, the two blonde siblings appeared from a nearby street, looking sweaty and exhausted. "We finally found you," exclaimed a heavily panting Bonnie, who was using the barely standing Clement for support. Deden, who was lying face down on her head, looking exhausted too. "Please don't run off without us again. Do you have any idea how hard it was to look for you?" said Clement, who looked far worse than Bonnie, slumping down with both hands on his knees. The exhaustion was comparable to the gravity of Earth bearing down on him, but 10 folds. The waterfall of sweat coming out of his body was immense. Ash waved off their complaints and shrugged. "I thought you'd look for a Pokemon Center, so I mean we decided to go on without you," explained Ash. "We did. But we still couldn't find you. We asked the nurse Joy inside, but that didn't help us much. She said the only thing she saw 2 couples, a blonde and a raven-haired trainer. Well, she did say he had a weird Pokemon, so that could have been a clue." Bonnie paused when she realized 2 things. 1, did Ash say we? 2, who's the blonde chick? "Wait a minute, what do you mean by we?" she asked. Viola waved at the newcomers with a bright smile. One thing's for sure, Ash had eccentric friends, thought Viola. You left us to go on a date with that girl, said a vexed Bonnie as the plume of smokes came out of her head. But what surprised everyone was what she said after, brother, you should learn from Ash. Clement collapsed on the ground from exhaustion and shock from what Bonnie said. Viola and Ash blinked at this and inwardly, slightly, incy-wincy small enough to fit an atom, blushed at the thought. Pikachu was laughing his butt off on the ground. His Ash? Go out with a girl? That'd be the day he learned a ground move like Earthquake. No no no. She helped me find my way in Santalon and get to the Pokémon Center. We were probably at one of the stores when you two came to the Pokémon Center, Ash frantically repeated, trying to disperse the growing misunderstanding. He's right. Ash looked kinda lost, so I kinda helped him and took him on a small brief tour of the city, Viola explained. That's a shame, but if you think about it, it does sorta sound like a date, said a convinced but curious Bonnie. Moving on Ash said, trying to move the topic out of awkward waters. This is Viola. Ash motioned with both hands to the older blonde, to which she waved to Clement and Bonnie again. She's a professional photographer and her pictures are amazing, Ash said. Viola puffed her chest at the compliment. Nice to meet you too, and I do take pride in my work. Whoa, a professional photographer. By any chance do you have any of Pokémon? Asked a very excited Bonnie, forgetting the fatigue. As a matter of fact, they're one of my specialties, said Viola, showing shots of Pokémon on her camera. These are amazing, said Bonnie as she shuffled from one picture to another. Clement, who regained his breath, stood up and also examined the photos. These pictures are breathtaking. Never have I seen shots of different assortment of Pokémon like these, as if each one of them tells a different story, said Clement. Viola smiled, appreciating the compliments that Clement and Bonnie gave. Clement hummed, which caught the attention of Ash, professional photographer, blonde, from Santalon City named Viola. I think I've read her somewhere. Perhaps are you Dash? He was cut off by Viola. No, what I mean is. You see, I'm always getting compared to someone with the same type of photography, she explained. She wasn't going to let anyone ruin her fun and surprise. Oh. Okay then, Clement said, dropping the subject. But something was still off. He wasn't convinced. Anyways. Where were we? Oh yes. We were heading to the Santalon gym, said Viola. You know, you've helped me enough, right? In fact, I'm probably wasting your time right about now, said Ash. Nonsense. It's just for a day and I can catch up on my project at any time, reassured Viola. Seriously, if you have other plans I don't mind, said Ash. I can look up where the gym is, pitched Clement. Ah, you want to get rid of me that badly, Viola playfully pouted. No, it's, well, Ash, although having a bit of experience of girls thanks to the previous journey, was still confused to what to do. But if there's one thing Dawn drilled into his head, fine. If it's not a bother. Thanks, said a defeated Ash. Gladly. And you're welcome, said a cheery Viola. Bonnie quietly tugged on Clement, motioning him to lean downwards. You sure those two aren't dating? Clement glanced at the laughing Viola and sulking Ash and shrugged. Men always lose to women, Dawn always said. Ash and Co. arrived at a large building where a familiar news reporter was waiting for them at the entrance. Hey, that's Alexa. Ash rushed forward, greeting the journalist. Pikachu jumped from Ash's shoulder onto the ground to greet Alexa's. Hello Ash, Alexa smiled. How's Kalos been treating you so far? She asked. It's been 1.5 weeks since she parted ways with Ash. Knowing the Pokémon trainer, he's bound to have come across some adventure along the way. Nothing much, besides the usual Team Rocket. I made new friends, Ash replied, gesturing to Clement and Bonnie. Oh hello there, nice to meet you too and Dash, she said, smiling to Bonnie and Clement, then noticed her sister Viola. Viola put a finger on her mouth, signifying to keep her identity a secret for now. Alexa understood and played along. Nice to meet you too, Miss Alexa, Clement said. Hello pretty lady, you might be old but you're a PFFMHM. Clement cut her little sister off before she could say anything that could embarrass him in front of the reporter. Alexa blinked, surprised by Clement's action and being called a pretty lady. Sorry, but she has a bad habit of proposing to women we encounter, Clement said, laughing awkwardly. Bonnie wiggled out of Clement's grasp and glared at her brother. It's not a bad habit. I'm just looking after your future. Call it a little sister's intervention, she sagely nodded to herself, mimicked by Deden on top of her head. Clement slumped forward and sighed dejectedly. I give up. Alexa chuckled and said, well, aren't your friends a lovely bunch? But Team Rocket? They're still chasing after you even here in Kalos? Asked Alexa in surprise. She thought that after Unova Team Rocket would be nothing more than a thing of the past. But apparently not. Unfortunately yes. But I'm not really surprised anymore after seeing them in 3 regions, Ash said in a bored tone. He gave up of thinking why Team Rocket kept chasing after him and Pikachu. Alexa's sweat dropped hearing Team Rocket's tenacity. Well, they sure are determined you can give them that. But anyway, my sister's been waiting for you inside, and from the looks of it, she's really looking forward to battling you. She turned her back from the group to look at the gym. Ash smiled and crossed his arm. Well, Rayquaza, how about I get you a first-hand experience of a gym battle? Rayquaza responded with a roar, delighted to experience what the humans called gym battles. Ash laughed at this and patted his head. Your sister the gym leader, huh? From what I've read her name is, Clement commented, but was stopped by a finger from Viola. You'll ruin the surprise. Best see it for yourself, Ash, Viola said. To which Alexa just laughed at. Ash nodded and walked towards the building, followed by Bonnie, Clement, Viola and Alexa. Surprise? I wonder what. Stepping inside, he was amazed by the corridors of portraits ranging from eccentric flowers to different kinds of Pokémon. Others were a close-up, while some from a long shot as if depicting a scene. The shots were one of a kind, the angling position of the camera creating a tranquil effect on the shot that could pull the strings and bend your emotions. All in all, it was professionally done. Wow! Pretty pictures, said a merry Bonnie as she skipped from one portrait to another. Looking at these pictures just show you the time and effort it took for the shot, said Clement, whom, unlike her sister, slowly observed one picture at a time. Indulging on the masterpiece created by the photographer who took it. These and Viola's shots look exactly the same, Clement thought. In terms of presentation you could say it's a carbon copy. Well, one thing's for sure. Whoever made these is a first-rate photographer, said Ash, who was deeply observing a picture of a pavilion with Rayquaza and Pikachu on both of his shoulders. That particular shot was the first shot the photographer took apparently, said Viola as she approached Ash's side. It was also one of the closest pictures to her heart, considering it's the shot that drove her forward to reaching her dreams, becoming a stepping stone to success, to what she is now. You really know about the photographer of this pic? Are you two close friends by any chance? Asked Ash. She continued gazing at the pic, answering Ash without looking at him. You could say that. Well, anyways, how about you get a bonus today, Ash? Since it looks like you really admire her work, how about we meet her today? Would you like that? And don't worry, it's my treat to you, said Viola, who was standing next to Ash. I'd love to. And I think Rayquaza would love that as well, said Ash as he looked at the dragon who moved from his shoulder and was looking at other portraits. It's agreed then. After your battle we'll meet the photographer of these pics, she said, smiling. Speaking of battle, where's the gym leader? I can't have a battle without him. Or her, said Ash, wondering where the gym leader of Santalon City is, and in his opinion, lucky to have a gym full of photographic masterpieces. Alexa snickered while Clement looked as if he wanted to say something. This only confused Ash more. Well, you see, as Clement was about to say, but was interrupted by Viola. It seemed like everyone wanted to interrupt each other today. I'm glad you asked, Ash, Viola said as she stood in front of the trainer. May I formally present to you, the one and only #1 photographer and gym leader of Santalon City, the tone of her voice increasing although slight but noticeable enough to create a build-up. "Me, Viola," she finished with a bow to create a dramatic effect. Ash stepped back from the revelation and his face did a quick 360 as if he was hit in the face by a brick. Confusion turned into more confusion, shock and all other emotions you could think of, like finding out your professor back home has been spending too much time with your mom. Although a bit exaggerated. Ash could only two words, wait. What?